Good evening and welcome to the December 20th, 2017 legislative session of the Town Board. This is our last legislative session, and I would just like to say at opening up, I'd like to wish everyone Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays as we wind out what seems to be a very quick year overall. I'll officially call the meeting to order, and I'll ask our clerk to please call the roll.
Cole.
Here.
LaFountain.
Here.
Metzler. Here. Moore.
Here.
Quinn.
Okay.
Is absent.
Is absent.
And
Yep,
want
and
to do the pledge?
we're going to do the pledge. That is correct. And I ask everyone to please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So we have a busy night tonight. The first thing that we're going to do is something that we wanted to do last week and did not get a chance. And that was to recognize one of our businesses in Penfield. I'm going to recognize Jim Costello from our staff. I'm going to also recognize Paula Metzler from the town board. And then I'd also like to recognize the Williams. And then I see Joan Belgiorno back there, who is the head of our Historic Preservation Board. So with that, who will kick that off? Joan?
Oh, group effort.
All right, group effort. And I'd also like to recognize Terry and Lindsay Williams.
I'd like to introduce Terry and Lindsay Williams, who have restored 2106
And Joan, I'm going to get, yes, I'm going to get kind of a note from downstairs, so if you
Okay.
could speak right into that would be great. Thank you.
They are now the owners of the church on 5 Mile Line Road, 2106 5 Mile Line, right across the street from Mark's Pizzeria, who Jeff Crane is, this award is in honor of. And they have done, the Cranes did a wonderful job keeping the building in good shape, and the Williams have followed along right in their footsteps and have done an amazing job on the stained glass windows, painted the outside of the building, and turned it into a very viable business. And that's what we're honoring them for this year with the Jeffrey S. Crane Historic Preservation Award. Jeff was very instrumental in the development of the Four Corners there and passed away too young in 2006. So this award is in his memory.
I'll just echo what Jonas said. I'm Paula Metzler. I have the privilege of being the town board liaison to the Historic Preservation Board, to attend their meetings and see all the hard work the residents who volunteer to be on that committee do. And we certainly, as a town board and as a town, we're delighted to know that the Williams were going to be purchasing and revitalizing the old church structure and at 2106 5 Mile Line Road. And as Joan mentioned, this award is in memory of Jeff Crane, who prior to his untimely passing had been instrumental in the Four Corners, and certainly his brother Mark of Mark's Pizzeria has continued to do so as well. So it's my privilege to present this award, granted in the memory of Jeff Crane, to individuals who have cared for Penfield's past through the preservation of a structure with historic significance. The 2017 award is presented to Terry and Lindsay Williams in recognition of their efforts to preserve the building at 2106 5 Mile Line Road, constructed in 1843 as the Penfield Methodist Church. Your hard work and dedication is an example to those around you, and the certificate is a small award in honor of your great accomplishment. And it's signed by Joan Belgiorno, Chairman of the Historic Preservation Board. Thank you so much.
And this plaque will hang outside with their names on it. They're the 13th recipients. Jeff's outside Tony's office, and Jeff Crane was the first recipient. So anybody can check the award out on their way out.
All right,
Great. Thank you.
I just wanted to thank the town for helping this all happen also. Kind of switched gears at the last moment to get into the church, and they were able to put things through quick enough that we actually got the place painted and a lot of the work done before the bad weather set in. So thank you all very much for the extra effort and kind of fast-tracking everything for me.
Thank you, and congratulations. I think it fits well into the Four Corners. I've had the opportunity to have a tour of the building. You've done some great things, and wish you many years of good success with your business at that location.
All right, thank you all very much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Happy holidays.
Good luck.
Okay, we will move on. We have a public hearing this evening, and I'll ask our town clerk to please read that legal.
Okay. To allow the installation of the following three businesses: Consumer Insights Incorporated, Autism Learning Partners LLC, and M&M Creation Nail and Spa at 2041 Penfield Road, located in the Planned Development Zoning District. The legal notice was published in the Penfield Post on November 30th, 2017, posted on the town's website and the town clerk bulletin board. 70 postcards were mailed.
All right, thank you. Mr. Horowitz, is this properly before the board?
Yes, it is.
Thank you very much. Mr. Shah, if you will, we have the package of material that was submitted. Mr. Costello has provided us with all that material, so the board does have that. However, for the record, would like you to go down through, each one of those particular businesses and address each one of them, and then if you've got anyone from that particular business that would like to add some comments, certainly we would welcome that as well. So
Okay.
The floor is yours.
Okay, my name is Neeraj Shah. I'm representing the owners of the property at 2041 Penfield Road. They are my parents, Lali and Surika Shah. My parents live at 20 Pondview Lane, just 2 doors down from me. The purpose of this talk, again, is to request that the town approve a special permit for use and the installation of the tenants. We need to do this because it's located in the Planned Development Zoning District. So I'm going to kind of describe the tenants right now. There's 3 tenants that we're talking about. There's actually 2 buildings that face 441 Penfield Road. One is the newer building, the 2-story, 6,000 square foot building, and the other one is the original building, the 1-story building that's about 3,000 square foot. So the first tenant is Consumer Insight. We were pretty excited about them coming in. They're leasing the entire second floor of the newly constructed building. So that's about 3,000 square foot. It's a marketing company and does market research for large companies nationwide. The employees generally work from their computers and via telecommunications. So they really don't have any clients visiting the office. A lot of it's back office and everything. Occasionally there's FedEx and UPS, just like any other business. The company has about 10 to 12 employees, and the operating hours are from 8 to 5 about. The second tenant also has home in the newly constructed building, but they're taking the east half of the first floor, so approximately 1,300 square foot. This company's name is Autism Learning Partners LLC. It's a company that deals with children who are diagnosed with autism. We feel it's a very good tenant for the town because of their niche service. It's a small company. The company has about 6 employees, and the operating hours are from about 8:30 to 6. The employees generally come to the office to process paperwork and group therapy, but work is often done, mostly done at the client's home. The number of cars at any given time will generally be about 3 to 4. We've been kind of observing these 2 tenants as they've taken occupancy, and really we've only seen maybe 8 to 10 cars just take up that space in total. So they're maybe working from at the client's home, or maybe not all of them are always there at the same time. Incidentally, so they're both low traffic tenants, And our property has a capacity of 68 parking spaces, so much, much larger. The last tenant that I'd like to talk about is M&M Creation Nail and Spa. It resides in the original building, the one-story, 3,000 square foot building. That building, actually, my father, he operates his tax practice on one half of it. The other half used to be, if you recall, Dr. Gloria Nichols' dentist practice over there. She moved out and she went to the Four Corners. I'm still a patient of hers, but she, like, this nail and spa business will start with, it's just a new business, so it's going to start with about 4 chairs and hopes to expand to 6. The business expects to have about 4 employees and 4 customers at any given hour, at any given time. Work hours are about 9 to 8 p.m., but it could be off and on. It anticipates much less traffic than the former occupant, Dr. Nichols. So in summary, the new 6,000 square foot building is now, knock on wood, it's three quarters occupied, leaving only 1/4 on the first floor vacant. The original 3,000 square foot building is fully occupied now.
Okay. Thank you. Did I miss the hours of operation for Consumer Insights?
So, yeah, I think, so anyways, the consumer insight hours are 8 to 5. Autism was about 8:30 to 6. And the spa was 9 to 8.
And that 9 to 8 is 5 days a week, 6 days a week?
They're just opening up, so it's just very, like, they're probably gonna have very small clientele, so, like, I don't, it's probably gonna be by appointment.
I'm sorry.
I'm not sure, but I can go back and I can check.
Any appointment, any weekend hours?
I'm not sure, I can double check that.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I was just going to ask about signage. Are you going to have a directory sign with those businesses?
So, yeah, so we have 2 signs that, that the town approved. So instead of having a big, huge sign on the face of 441, we requested a 20 square foot sign and a 30 square foot sign instead of a 50 square foot sign. So the 20 square foot sign is in front of the smaller building, and that's where they're going to have a small piece of like a panel. And then the other one, the consumer insight and the autism are going to have that. The signs are already there. We just have to contract with the signage company to have them made, the panels made.
Gotcha.
And then the third sign that you have there, that for leasing space, that will come down?
So that's, so Jim Papa's sign? It has to come down.
So that sign will come down?
So,
So if you would, Mr. Shah, because we tape for those that can't make it in here, if you would just come to the mic and identify yourself, thank you.
My name is Lalit Shah. I own the property at 2041 Penfield Road. Yeah, that sign will be out. Still, we are waiting to lease out the last part of the building. And that is only reason it is staying there. As soon as somebody comes up, then we'll be taking down that sign immediately.
Okay, all right. You know, there has been a number of calls that have come in for the signage and the amount of signage that are on that property. And certainly, there were two components, not to exceed 50 square feet. The one for 20 square feet at the existing building, and then 30 square feet at the current building. But the lease sign, that has been, you know, something that has raised just a lot of concern, number of signs and the size of the signs.
So if the town wants us, then I will tell Mr. Papas to take it out after 1 month.
That would be great.
Okay,
That
then.
would be great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Board, other questions or comments for the applicant?
The nail salon would be a separate parking area, correct, than the new building?
Right, so like if you kind of, the property, like the parking area, kind of, we had a curb cut on Sanders Farm, so there's parking to the, I guess that's to the west of the building. There's some parking on the west, and then there's some parking along the back of the building, but the majority of the parking is on the east side of the building. There's a large rectangular block that has a lot of parking over there. So, I mean, it's a common parking for everybody, but yeah, the nail and spa, Dr. Nichols used that parking. That's the easiest to use.
Okay. Board, other questions or comments?
Do you have any intent on making the property look a little bit more aesthetically pleasing? You know, it's got a great location, there's absolutely no doubt about it, and you know, everybody can see it going up and down Route 441, but are you going to be doing any landscaping, any window treatments, or anything to the property to just kind of spruce it up? It's been vacant for quite a while now. I am glad to see that there's activity going on. I'm encouraged by that.
So, like with the, I remember, I think I can talk to that, because on the site plan, they had, they required with putting up the building, a bunch of trees and bushes and all that stuff, and like, I got to learn more about landscaping than I wanted to, like burns and like hills and all that stuff, and so we've complied with all that stuff, and actually, we try to keep it, if you look at, right now it's winter, so you can't really appreciate it, but those bushes and those trees were newly planted at that time, so as the trees start developing, you're going to see more greenery. Like if you go in the parking lot, you'll see kind of like even new evergreens and other trees that have been planted.
Okay.
Other questions, comments, Board? Okay. Sit tight. We'll open it up to the public for comments. Did we have anyone that signed up to speak on this particular application?
I don't believe so.
All right. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the board on this particular matter? And this matter is as it relates to business occupancy at 2041 Penfield Road. Okay, not seeing anyone. I would ask our Development Services Director, Mr. Costello, is there anything that you believe should be added to the record that has not already been added to the record this evening? Okay. Board, one last opportunity for any questions, comments that you may have. All right, Mr. Shah, anything additional that you would like to add to this particular application?
No, thanks for the opportunity.
So the next steps, this board will next meet in a work session on January 10th. That will be the next opportunity that the board will take this matter up for discussion. I believe you've got a couple of action items to follow up with Mr. Costello, specifically as it relates to hours of operation for the nail salon, any Saturday hours, some things like that. So if you would forward that to Mr. Costello will make sure that that comes to the board.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you
Great.
so much.
Thank you. And we'll see you on the 10th of January,
So
2000.
we should be present for that too, the work session?
You don't, it's not mandatory to be present, but certainly if you want to listen to the discussion of the board, you're welcome to attend.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Great. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on. Communications and announcements, and I'll recognize our town clerk first.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. We've been getting many calls regarding the 2018 town and county taxes in the last couple of weeks, and if you would like to pay your taxes early, the first day taxes can be paid is on Friday, December 29th from 9 to 5. We can print your bill that day, and we will collect payments in check or cash. Please plan on a longer wait time, especially in the morning. We believe we'll have a lot of people coming in at that time. So if you want to wait a little while, come in that day, and just be prepared to wait a little bit. So,
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you. I think the only other announcement is that all town offices will be closed on Monday, December 25th, in recognition of Christmas. We'll be open back up on the 26th, Tuesday the 26th. With that, we'll move on to public participation. And there are several ways that you can address the board on any matter. If you're here in the audience, you can call in at 340-8771, or you can log on at penfield.org. And I made a commitment at our December 6th meeting. We had a couple of individuals that came in that we did not get to, and I promised both of those individuals that if they came this evening, I would put them on first. So I will at least recognize the first, Dr. Kathleen McGrail, if I see she is here. And the next person is Christina Emery. If she is here, we'll take those two first. So, Doctor?
So I'm Kathleen McGrail, 275 Parkview Drive. And I'm not here to talk about Shadow Pines. I'm here to talk about the 2020 planning group. And online on the town website, it said that that group was going to get kicked off in July, that a group would be selected in September and would be having its third meeting by now. But there isn't anything on the website that says that that has actually happened. So I have some questions related to that. The first is, has the committee been selected? And if it has, who are those people? Second, what were the criteria that were used to choose the people on the committee? Third, if some sort of zoning and planning experience was required for people to be on that planning board, how do people come by that experience? So I guess I'll, and I should also say that part of the reason I'm here now is because I submitted these questions online 3 meetings ago, I think.
Okay.
And I want to say something about that process and transparency. So your website says that you can participate electronically. I couldn't come, so I submitted the questions electronically. On the site where you submit, it says they will be printed out at the desk next to the facilitator of the meeting. And it seems to suggest that they will be addressed. The reply, which was very prompt, so an automated reply came back to me and said, we received your questions, but the facilitator of the meeting makes a decision about whether or not those questions will be addressed in the meeting itself. If that person decides not to address them, someone will address them and contact you. So what I will say is that no one contacted me. So it's at least, I think, it's at least 4 weeks, and it may be 6. It was before Thanksgiving. So there's the process of participation, and then there are the questions about the committee itself. So why don't we start with the committee itself?
So the answer to your questions are as follows. Yes, originally this board was looking to get this kicked off sooner than it was. Obviously, there were a number of items that have come up that has occupied the board with considerable amount of time. I just forwarded actually to the board last Friday the proposed revised schedule that once blessed by the board will get up on the website. So no one has been selected at this time. We have approximately 25 to 30 different individuals that have submitted their names of interest. The board historically, whenever we've solicited names to serve on boards and committees, the board will take a look at a number of different things. Take a look, certainly some of the experiences that the individual brings to the table, their background. Take a look at the geographic location where they are. We don't want to have, so in a comp plan, you don't want to have everyone from Parkview White Village, for example. So the board has received those names, and we have not started to review that list. Probably will do that, sometime right after the new year.
Okay, so one response or comment I want to make about the
Sure.
selection is that when I first started looking at the composition of your town board committees, I don't know if people get paid for being on those or if they're voluntary, but when I was looking, I thought, oh, there's something odd about that, and I went back and I looked again. So out of 100 positions, roughly 106 positions on committees, I don't know if you realize, but only 15% of those are women, and almost all the women are on library, historic preservation, and history. None of them are, there's only one woman on the committees for zoning and planning. And based on what really matters at the moment, and actually matters a lot in every region of this town, is development. And I would say that since women actually constitute more than 50% of the population of Penfield, that we ought to have more representation on those committees than a nominal 1 or 2. That was also true of Shadow Pines. I don't know if it's an issue of interest, or if it is I don't know what it is, but I would like to say that we deserve more representation on your committees, all of your committees.
Will not disagree with that. So with the number of folks that have submitted their names for consideration, I would say that probably 75 to 80% of them have been male. And those are the folks that have reached out to us. And then the other 20% obviously females. So I know this board, and specifically a couple members of this board, have raised that concern, Mrs. Metzler, Mrs. Cole, and have, in their different circles, have continued to advertise on behalf of that this process will be going on, this process will be kicked off, and if you have an interest, please submit your name. So I know that at least 2 very active board members have been out leading that effort on behalf of the board.
Okay, and then I
Recent
have...
events as well have caused more applications to come in, so we are still accepting people who are
Okay.
interested.
All right, so I have one other comment, if I can remember what it was. Oh, I know. It is the issue of qualifications. So it would seem to me that the people who are going to have the experience, if you're looking for zoning and planning experience, it would seem to me that those people are more likely to be development lawyers or people who work for developers, which seems to me to represent a significant potential conflict of interest if the zoning that people are weighing in on and the planning could then affect work that they do for clients or for employers. And is there, it took me a while, but I found the code of ethics for the town, and it says town employees, but it doesn't say anything about conflict of interest for volunteers who participate on committees. Is there a way that you systematically address that?
There is. As we go through that process, we will take a look at that, especially with the Planning Board and Zoning Board of Appeals, Historic Preservation Board. Those boards are decision-making boards, and so this board has been very careful to make sure that the people that are sitting there are not recusing themselves every other application type of thing.
Okay.
And so that's part of the discussion, at least as we do the work for those boards. And to answer one of your other questions, for the roughly 100-plus people, with the exception of Planning Board, Zoning Board, Historic Preservation Board, and Conservation Board, there is no stipend for any of those committees. All those committees are voluntary committees, voluntary in that they've asked to be considered, they've been appointed, and there is no compensation to them. The only 4 compensated boards are Planning, Zoning, Conservation Board, and Historic Preservation Board.
Okay, so I don't envy you any of your jobs, especially these days. Thank you for answering my questions.
Absolutely.
And I would ask that something be clarified about the process of electronic participation.
Okay, great, thank you. And thank you for coming back. So, all right. And so one last shout out for Christine Emery. Okay, so she is not here. All right, then we will move on. And I'll ask our clerk there, again, if you're here in the audience, so you can address the board again on any matter. The board has, I see it, or excuse me, our clerk has a stack of those that have signed up. If you haven't signed up, that's okay. We'll go through those first, and then we'll open it up to the rest of the audience. So with that, I'll ask our clerk to please read the first name.
Mike Reisinger.
Hi, Mike. Welcome.
Thanks for your time, and thanks for what you guys do. I'm at 153 Barrows Hills Drive, obviously in Penfield, the good side of Penfield, and I'm glad to be here. I'm here on my own reconnaissance with the missus because I feel like shaking. 2 weeks ago, somebody walks up my driveway and says, "Hey, I just want a minute of your time." Okay, and I'm like, "Sure, what is it?" "Want you to sign a petition because we believe you have the right to vote to make sure that Shadow Pines, is either a green space or is housing." And I said, "Yeah, I've been playing there for 25 years, and I really want to make sure it's a green space." "Oh, absolutely. This will give you the right to vote to make sure it's a green space." So what do? I do what probably 95% of us would do. I sign it. Then my wife comes out and signs it. Okay? So then, if it's a duck, if it quacks like a duck, you know what it is. It's a duck. So what I do is I end up researching a bit because I know a lot of people, and then I know that the person, and the lady was very nice. Okay, she was spot on. Find out she's in real estate, find out really what's going down. So I call the gentleman, I say, "You got to take me off this list." He says, "Absolutely, I'll call you back and let you know that." He says, "If I can't call you back, just know that I tried to get you off the list." Well, I'm here asking you to make sure that my name is not on that list. And that's all I have to say.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you.
Jeff Burns.
Hey, Jeff.
Good evening. I'm Jeff Burns, 39 Scarborough Park in Penfield, and I'm one of the founders of the Save Shadow Pines group. I wanted to ask you, Mr. Supervisor, if you could report on the status with Shadow Pines tonight.
Yes, and later on in the agenda, item 7 talks about petitions, but petition was received late this afternoon and at the town clerk's office, and town clerk has that on file.
Okay. And can you comment on any conversations with Old Castle Dolomite about extending the deadline for closing the sales agreement?
So what I can tell you is that that item has been on the table and will continue to be on the table. So it's been on discussion table for several months, and we'll continue to, in fact, have that as part of the negotiated sale and purchase agreement. So for the record, as of today, there is no agreed upon or signed sales and purchase agreement between the town of Penfield and Old Castle. That is still part of the negotiations. One of the items that we continue to negotiate on is the deadline for a closing.
Okay. So are you optimistic that there's still room for negotiation and that we're still in the game here?
I'm optimistic that both parties are still at the table, and both parties are still speaking, and both parties are doing that in good faith. So we'll continue to move forward in that direction.
Okay. Now, I've heard from the town board and from officials with Dolomite and Old Castle. People at Old Castle have told me that there are other ways for the town to purchase the land than a bond issue. And they said that you would know what those are. Do you know what are they talking about, and why can't we approach it in another way if we need to?
So I guess the only other way is if we had a benefactor that came and presented us a check for $3.6 million and said, spend it any way you want. I guess that's one way that I could think about doing it. We don't have the money to be able to just write a check for that amount. We have to go through the bonding process. And so, again, part of the negotiations that we're looking to do is to go through that bonding and borrowing the money in order to purchase the property. Again, we have to get to an agreed-upon sales and purchase agreement by both parties and then move forward in that direction.
Okay.
So if you've got some other ideas, Jeff, or if you think you have some other ideas, would welcome
Very good.
those thoughts or ideas.
Okay, I think our group has a couple of ideas we might be putting forward soon.
Right. Okay.
So in reference to the petition, I think you'll be hearing, as you already have, from various people, and we hope that the board, the town clerk, will be looking carefully at the petition and the legitimacy of the petition. We've heard many stories where people were misled that the petition would help save Shadow Pines when it really doesn't. It puts the agreement at risk. We've heard some people that have signed the petition for other people, and the petitioners should know that that's not, that would be an area that would be disqualified if found, and it's not the right thing to do. We've heard of people that once they understood the issue better, have wanted to have their names removed from the petition, and they've had difficulty in having that done. So Mr. Madden at the previous town board meeting had promised that he would remove anyone's name who changed his or her mind, but I'm not sure that that's been followed through as he had said. And then it's also worth noting that for all the talk of democracy, that the petitioners censored and removed postings from their own area and Facebook where they were promoting this for those that were trying to explain the issue from the other side and wanting to promote saving Shadow Pines. So in the meantime, the Save Shadow Pines group, we welcomed polite discourse. And our group, from the beginning, would have welcomed a referendum, and the only reason we were encouraging people not to sign the referendum was that our town supervisor had told us that there was not time to have the referendum based on the deadline that Oldcastle has provided. So now is the time, I believe, for Oldcastle Dolomite, the same company, to be a good neighbor for the community and honor its offer to sell Shadow Pines to the community and extend the deadline so that there's sufficient time for a town referendum to approve the bond issue. We've always been confident that there would be overwhelming support from the townspeople to buy Shadow Pines. Support at town hearings and at public comments to the town have been 40-1 in favor of buying Shadow Pines. The moratorium committee, which met for months, strongly recommended the purchase. And it's going to save taxpayers money within a few years compared to the net increase of school property taxes that the proposed cookie-cutter housing development would require. This was analysis by somebody that was on the moratorium committee. So it will actually cost the town less to buy Shadow Pines than it would for it to be developed with the proposal that we know that was on the table. So to review, Oldcastle Dolomite offered to sell Shadow Pines to the town for more than $1 million under market value. This is a great deal for the town. The value of that property is only going to go up. Protecting it will serve the best interests of the community. For decades, Shadow Pines has been a buffer between residential communities, residential neighborhoods, and Oldcastle's industrial site, where there's been an active asphalt plant and active quarry blasting. Open space not only improves quality of life for people and nature, it has been shown to make towns more attractive to home buyers and increase property values. Nearly 20 years ago, Penfield residents in a landslide vote voted to preserve open space, so it's part of the town character as well. So we want, we know that Oldcastle is looking for a firm closing date from the town, and from what we understand from the town supervisor, once there is a referendum, my understanding is that you had said that the town with a positive referendum could vote positively, could vote for, could close the deal within 3 weeks after a referendum. Is that right?
If we go through the referendum process, then we've got to go out for bonding, and then, it's typically, upon a positive vote, you would need approximately a month to go out to the bond market and then get closed.
Okay, good. All right, well, I'm glad to hear that there are still negotiations going on, and look forward to good news in the future.
And certainly this board is continuing, as far as we can, continuing to move forward with the process. Obviously, we can't go out for a bond until we have a purchase, an approved purchase and sales agreement. We're continuing to work on that so that we could then ultimately move forward. And so again, we're as early as today, this afternoon, Mr. Horowitz and I were talking with our real estate representatives and bond counsel as to how do we, continue to at least move this forward so we minimize any time loss as we move forward.
Okay. So would you say that the ball is in Old Castle Dolomites court now to honor the offer that they provided the town and give us enough time to do a referendum?
Well, what I'll say is that it takes two to tango, and we continue to work with them and make sure that we're identifying the exact time it would need, again, by law, to get a vote, to then go to market to get the bonds, sell the bonds, and then to close. So we're continuing to work on sharpening our pencil as close to that as we can. We're working to try to get a purchase and sales agreement completed, and I think Old Castle continues to be at the table to work along those lines as well.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
Jeff, make no mistake about it, this board has, from day one, wanted nothing less than a public referendum. That has been our desire and our intent all along, and we had to make a very hard decision. But I'm hopeful that Dolomite and Old Castle will see the value and see for them the good business sense of going forward and extending us just a small, in the business and real estate world, a really small extension of time. So, but again, this entire board, we have wanted a public referendum from the get-go, and we hope that we still can have one.
Yeah, I think this is a once-in-a-generation opportunity for our town, and it would be very good for Old Castle as well. I really hope that this goes through. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas.
Lori McCullum Rayner.
I'm Lori McCallum Rayner, and I reside at 1915 Clark Road. And in full disclosure, that is my mother's house, and I am maintaining it while she is in a nursing home. I am not a resident, but I have power of attorney for her disclosure. And there's nothing really more than I could add to Jeff and any of the other folks up here tonight. I will say I spent 2 days sitting at the Penfield Fitness Center with complete confusion of residents, especially on the Brighton side, of what this all meant to our traffic situations, school taxes, and I was surprised that they didn't really understand if they, their schools, their kids went to school in Penfield and they were Brighton residents, so, and I was there. So I'm just here to, and I talked to Amy today, to understand the authenticity of the petition that was arranged. I don't understand, and I looked at New York State regulations and things like that, how we could have come to this point. So I cannot add nothing more to Jeff or anybody else's situation tonight. I just know when I was talking to folks at the fitness center, there was complete confusion about the petition. So thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Thank you. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas.
Douglas Fisher.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Good evening. I've spoken here before on the
You
Shadow
have.
Pines matter, and I certainly want to commend each of you for pursuing it. It is going to be wonderful for the town and for the region. And I think you've got a good strategy of setting the schedules off to one side, different deadlines off to one side, just going ahead and doing everything. For example, you do have the resolution tonight for the CNS companies for seeker.
Phase 2.
Yes. And no matter what the referendum says, I encourage you to adopt this resolution. It is not mandatory directing a signature on the contract. It is authorizing the supervisor to sign it. So if necessary, the supervisor can just wait and see what happens in terms of the referendum, or just let this go ahead. But the key thing here is to work as strongly as possible to have everything in place by January 31st, just in case. And we've heard testimony, and I hope that that date is flexible. I hope it can be changed. And if the Dolomite Oldcastle has complained about the town delaying, well, no, the town is not now delaying, whatever they may say, and that they really should be honoring it. So the question of alternative ways, if the referendum says no, there are entities, not-for-profit entities, that are routinely step forward when government is not able to act quickly because of legal schedules, to be able to purchase property and hold it till government is able to do this. New York State Parks Department does this routinely. When there's a risk of good parkland that would be lost unless there's an immediate purchase, then the state would have to wait for all kinds of legislative approvals and so forth. I'm thinking of a particular entity that steps forward at the request of the State Parks Department, buys the land, holds it, and then when the money is there, they're paid off. So that is a prospect, which might have to be invoked if the Old Castle stays firm. But whether it's getting bond counsel all ready to go with the signatures ready the moment the authorization is there, any kind of speeding up the process to meet the contingencies as very quickly as possible is certainly to be encouraged. And again, I commend you for your efforts in moving forward favorably on preserving this land for the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Happy holidays.
I have no others.
All right. So those that would like to speak on any matter, not just Shadow Pines. So I got one back there, the second by Jim Froome. I've got a third over here, and then I've got Mindy 4, 5, 6. So, all right, so let's start, gentlemen, in the back here.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, all
Thank you.
that.
Same to you.
My name is Ned Benson. I live at 108 Harwood Circle. I've been attending a couple of these meetings, and I guess my question is, in past meetings, it was discussed that you wanted to do the referendum and have the vote on Election Day, and Old Castle supposedly dragged their feet into the point where you could not get the 60 days to be able to do that. Do I have that correct?
We didn't have a letter of intent signed by both parties. That is correct.
Okay. So,
once we got the letter of intent, we signed that in September.
Right.
To move forward. But by that time, it didn't allow enough time to have a vote on Election Day.
okay, so why didn't you just go ahead and schedule it anyways for whenever it could come up?
Well, again, we didn't have any type of formal or approved sales and purchase agreement. We had a letter of intent that both parties were willing to sit down and negotiate, but we did not have an agreed-upon purchase and sales agreement that they would be willing to sell us and we would be willing to buy. And again, to date, As of today, we still do not have that.
Okay. I was under the impression that you had come to an agreement and that you were going to try to push for like the 1st of September to get that so that, but I thought you had that. I thought they had given you that on like the 20th or
We had
something.
we had the letter of intent, again, so that
Okay.
was intended that we would negotiate towards a purchase and sales agreement, and the seller had the part of that letter of intent so that they would prepare the first draft to get to us for that negotiation.
Okay, so then, at that point, you've changed it, instead of the referendum to go to whatever's causing the issues with the vote, I don't know what that's called, that you were going to do the other way to buy it.
So we were going to go through,
Permissive
we
referendum.
actually went through and passed a resolution for bond counsel. We had all that set up. That is subject to a 30-day permissive referendum. A petition needs to be submitted. That was done within that 30-day window. That was the petition that was received today. So we can no longer move forward to purchase the property. Now, with the receipt of the petition, we are required to hold a public vote so that folks can either vote for or against. But again, we've got to get to an approved purchase and sales agreement and get working through that. And one of those items is the closing date to be able to get that extended to allow us to do that.
So do you don't have a agreed purchase agreement,
That is correct.
but you were going to go ahead and vote to spend the money to buy it?
We did that, again, we had the ability to do that under the law, subject to permissive referendum and a petition being turned in. That petition was turned in today, so now that process has stopped. The only thing we can do now is hold a public vote. We can't hold that public vote until both parties can agree to the conditions of a purchase and sales agreement. And that's something that we continue to work on to iron that out.
Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you. Happy holidays.
I'll just add,
Yep.
Mr. Supervisor, as I've talked to some folks, a lot of folks about this, I think there's been kind of some understandable misunderstanding about when a town can just set a vote. It's not a let's just set a vote and have everybody vote whether we should buy it or not. I think of it in two components. There's the bond component. There's requirements we need to go through and steps we need to go through to approve going forward with a bond in a certain amount of money. And that has to be stated on the referendum vote. So there's that component, a requirement, and then other terms of a purchase and sale agreement, so that we have a legally binding language on the vote, so that we are doing it, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Horowitz, that we are proceeding with a vote with the proper language under the law, but also enough language that is informing people when they're voting what they're voting on. So I think I have heard from a lot of folks who said, well, why didn't, a year and a half ago you set a vote? Well, on what? At what price? At what amount of money? We didn't know if we'd be approved for the bonds yet. We can't do that. So we had to go through certain steps to even get to where we'd have the language that you'd see on your vote. That's all specifically there for a reason.
Thank you. Jim Fromm.
I'm Jim Froome from 11 Denonville. Merry Christmas to everybody. Happy holidays.
Thank you, Jim.
Just a couple questions. I had a lot of stuff I was going to talk about, and I think I'll wait because I was under the understanding if the petition came in, that the deal was dead. That's kind of what I was led to believe 2-3 weeks ago.
And it could very well be. Again, it'll depend upon how the ongoing discussions and negotiations go.
Okay, remind me to come back to that, then I will go through some of this. My first question is on the petition that came in. This is for legal counsel, probably. What I understand, if somebody wants to challenge the petition, right, they have 5 days, is that correct?
That's correct.
And 5 days is Christmas, so that means...
26 it'll be, and the 26th will be the last
Be next
day.
Tuesday, okay.
Correct.
And do I also understand the only person that can bring that action is somebody that signed the petition and is unhappy? or can anybody bring it?
The people, the statute says any person.
Anybody, okay.
The court will determine if it's a proper person.
Okay. And who is going to verify the signatures? Is it the town or the Board of Elections?
The judge,
A judge?
if it goes to a legal proceeding.
But don't you just, by a matter of fact, check the signatures anyway?
The judge has the authority to check the validity of signatures.
So maybe,
The town does not have the authority to check the validity of signatures. They're presumed legally to be valid.
Unless somebody challenges it.
Correct.
Okay. And is it the
similar
same?
to, I'm sorry, Jim, but, similar to election law?
It is pursuant to the election law. It's similar to a candidate's designating petition if other candidates think their opponent's petition process is flawed. They bring objections. It's for the courts to determine the validity of the petition and the signatures.
Okay, that was my next question, if it's the same as election law.
Right.
Okay. Okay, let's go back to the thing might blow up. Let's just presume for a minute that things go bad. And we don't know it till, say, February or March. What's the plan after that?
So say a few more words if things go bad.
If they tell you they're not going to extend the deadline, so there's no reason to go to a vote, from what I understand, we have till the end of March, early April for the
For the
moratorium.
moratorium? Yes.
Okay. From my standpoint, I am absolutely convinced that there's no way that this should ever be developed as property, and I believe you guys all feel this too. And I'd like to ask each one of you, do you guys understand, you can just give me a yes or no, that the first master plan was 1966, and that the quarry that started in 28 was listed as a, if I can remember the right word, as a nuisance, and that the town should consider amortizing it. Are you guys all familiar with that?
I am.
Okay. And then in 1968, 2 years later, the Dolomite Corporation started purchasing the land that is now Shadow Lake. And I can't tell you if it was 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 parcels, but basically the 200-ish acres. And then there was the issue with the Halloran Quarry. You guys all know about that, right? And that there was a town committee put together to look at what was done, and I believe Irene Gosson was the town supervisor at that time. And Dolomite asked, could we put some, maybe we should put some houses there to get rid of the quarry and the parties and the nude bathing and the beer parties and all that, or the town should buy it. And the Penfield Post claims that that had been tried before in terms of the town buying it, and the price was always too high by state law. Are you guys familiar with that aspect of it? I'm going back to 1975, 76.
Yeah, this is all covered in the moratorium committee as well, I know that was raised.
We tried, yeah. We tried to cover it. So in my mind, since that time, with them buying the properties and the quarry growing and the town growing from, 20,000 or 15,000 people, whatever it was, that it's pretty obvious to most of us, that, and I lived there, I lived right across from the golf course when it was a field and it was farmed, and there were softball diamonds, or a softball diamond there. It's pretty obvious to those of us who live in the area that this was the compromise, this was the buffer zone to the quarry. And the town grew up. The quarry out in Walworth, has expanded quite a bit. And so they're not just digging. I mean, they used to blast almost every day, 3-4 times a week. They blast once a week now. But as near as I can tell from driving by there, the truck traffic during the building season is still pretty much the same. And so the only way they get the stone out, if what I think is true, is they're hauling stone in from Walworth and distributing it from there to save shipping costs, which are or transportation costs, which are high. But anyway, it boggles my mind that something could happen where this wouldn't go forward, because like Jeff said, you know, this is good for Dolomite, and it's good for the town. I had one time called it a nice compromise between the town and Dolomite, that they bought the land on 3 sides, and Atlantic's on the north side, and so you basically have covered the nuisance, if you will, and they keep going and going. And, you know, never mind the fact that in some documents it said it would be mined out in the year 2000, and now we're being told 2030 or 2040. It's kind of this never-ending hole that keeps getting dug in the ground there as our town grows up around it. But my point is that this is the most significant piece of property in this town. And the people have spoken, and the committee has spoken. And so my question is, with the March 30th or so end of the moratorium, if something happens, are you guys willing to look at rezoning? Are you guys willing to look at condemnation or eminent domain? Or are you guys willing to extend the moratorium for 6 months? An additional 6 months, so the townspeople have time to react with petitions and movements, as is our right? Are you prepared to do that?
So I think, as we've said meetings before, Jim, that I think this board is taking a look at all those options. We do know that moratorium is in place until the 30th of March of 18. And this board has been having conversations about what are all the options, and so that has been ongoing conversations that we have had.
I've tried to find answers to this. I think I have some of them, but my fear is if something happens in February or March and everybody throws their hands up and says we can't come to an agreement, you know, what do the townspeople have as recourse at that point? Because I will tell you that I firmly believe, based on everything that's happened here, that the vast majority of this town want that to be open space, and they will step up. But we have to have time. According to Section 81, it says here that upon its own motion, and shall upon a petition. And one of the categories is to establish airports, landing field, public parking places, public parks, and playgrounds. From what I understand, I think from you guys, is that you're not, if the townspeople put up a request to rezone the property to parkland or recreation, which many towns, if you research that, many towns did that in the 1940s, in the early 1950s, when towns were growing up, you know, when the population was exploding. But from what I understand, that doesn't have to be voted on. You don't have to put that out to a vote. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. But you can, if enough people signed the petition, you guys could talk it through yourselves and say, yeah, let's do that. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. Now, if some other petition came up, whatever, that has something to do with the property, if it's involved a local law, I guess it would be called, do you have to take, is there anything that the townspeople could do that would force another referendum vote?
I guess we're starting to get into an area that I'm going to probably look to our town attorney for some guidance and some thoughts. So Horowitz?
It's hard to answer and speculate as to all different kinds of contingencies, and we certainly would be glad to, if there was some specific suggestions to be considered, could give appropriate answers.
So you'd like concrete?
If you have some concrete suggestions as to what you're talking about.
Well, I don't have one right now. What we're getting at is, you know, worst case scenario, what do the townspeople have available to them? And everybody's got an opinion on this, and I understand we're in the weeds. I understand I'm asking a terrible question, but there was one time before I tried to ask a question, and the answer was, this is legal advice, and I'm a legal advice to the town. I can't give you legal advice. So, you know, it's kind of frustrating for us unless we're willing to go out and raise money and hire our own lawyer. And we don't know if we should do that, to be honest with you. You know, if you do decide to go through, you know, I mean, it sounds like you're going to continue. So it sounds like what I heard 3 or 4 weeks ago, if the petition came in, the deal was dead, that you're not taking that position. You're going to still go forward and try to convince.
That's exactly right. We're going to do our best. This board has made a commitment to do our best to continue to move forward. Hence why I think the one gentleman had indicated that we do have a resolution later this evening that talks about doing Phase 2 environmental assessment. We want to make sure that we have all of those things teed up so that we can react as quickly as we can on those to minimize any extended time, and again, to continue to work with the seller on being able to extend the date.
If you schedule a referendum vote, will we assume, or will you tell us that you have a written agreement, a binding agreement with the seller?
Yeah.
If you schedule a vote, is that a given?
I think that that's, you know, what advice we're hearing from the attorney is that to go out for a referendum vote without having a signed agreement is a little bit, probably a little bit inappropriate, because if we were to go out for a vote, have the vote, and, you know, partway through the time of, as we're getting ready to get that set up, the seller says, you know, the deal's off and we're moving in a different direction, that's obviously a little bit of a problem. So
Right.
our goal has been and continues to be to come to an agreement on that purchase and sales agreement.
Okay. So if you get an agreement, I would assume you're going to have a deadline. If you're going to schedule a vote, you're going to have an agreement, and there's going to be a deadline that you think you can work with.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
This is off in the weeds again a little bit, but somebody suggested to me the other day that if the bond, and I've been told that you've done some preliminary bond work already. Is what I was
We
told.
have. I mean, we, as part of the process that brought us to this point, this board had retained the services of bond counsel. We prepared all the appropriate paperwork. We passed the resolution. Resolution was subject to a permissive referendum, which you know, hit today. So that stopped that process.
Okay. But if you schedule a vote and the process moves forward, here's my question. It has been suggested that you guys have a very good bond rating. And because of the number of phone calls many of the people get that are in the public face of this, trying to save the Pines as open space, it is my guess that there may be enough people that maybe 20, 30, 40, 50, 60% of that bond, people might be willing to buy into that bond, or give you a commitment that if you go forward with this bond, that they would buy some of those. Now, is that something that you would talk to the bond counsel about? To say, hey, we've got maybe $1 million, $1.5 million to $2 million of this from townspeople are willing to buy the bonds? Does that speed up the process, is my question.
Jim, let me just say this, that the town has never had a problem going into the marketplace and selling its municipal bonds.
Okay, so that's not going to be,
that's not a problem.
That's not going to be, time-wise, that's not an issue. Okay.
No, it's just, it is a reality, but it's not, if Dolomite allows an extension to have the vote, and allows an extension to go to the marketplace to sell bonds, and then once we get the money to have the time to close, that will be no problem.
Okay. And my last question is, can I assume by the next town meeting in 2 weeks, you should probably have a pretty good yay or nay for us at that point in time?
As soon as we're able to come to an agreement, we will definitely share that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, Jim. Before Mindy, I thought Mindy, I said you were okay, great. Thank you. You're here, Mindy, so go right ahead. Just want to make sure we're not upsetting anybody for.
Right.
All right, great. Thank you.
My name is Mindy McLaren. I live at 1724 5 Mile Line Road. And I will say that I put this together before I learned that the results of the petition are not sort of scrubbed within the town's purview. That's what you said, right? Okay. But what
So the petitions are available. They're available to be reviewed. So as early as 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, they're available for anyone to come in and review those petitions.
Okay. But I did want to talk about the petition and what I have witnessed since the last meeting 2 weeks ago. But, I'll begin by saying that, as many of us are, I am very disheartened by the whole situation and how this has played out so far. For the past 2 years, I've been working with at least 10 other Penfield residents to mobilize other residents into showing their support for saving shadow pines from development. And as Jeff said, we would have all preferred to have the promised referendum. I would think that that's probably the only thing that most of us could agree on, given how this is dividing people in town. But in light of the petition, I want to say that I'm also disheartened by the seeming lack of integrity that I've witnessed in collecting some of these names. From my own experience, 2 weeks ago at the December 6th meeting, prior to the town board coming in and being seated and starting the meeting, Dorothy Madden went through the rows of chairs asking people to sign her petition, which I thought was completely inappropriate and seemed to me to be taking advantage of a room full of people just to further her agenda. We have had reports of signers, as we saw with Mike Riesinger, saying that they felt duped, someone used that word, duped, into signing a petition for something that they don't actually support. We have seen on the Take Back Our Vote Facebook page, people being blocked, comments deleted by people just providing some factual information to misinformation. And my feeling is if there's nothing to hide and it's all in the open and transparent, as Neil complained about 2 weeks ago, then there's no need for deleting or blocking. As Neil made public at the last meeting, he agreed to take off people's names from the petition if they contacted him. The deadline was today, is that correct, the 20th?
To get the petition in, yes.
Right. Okay. So I know that at least 3 people called him yesterday to have their names removed. I have the names of 4 people right here. He explained that he could not do that because he had already made copies of the petition and he wasn't going to take their names off after the copies had been made. As far as I'm concerned, that is Neil's problem, not someone who signed a petition and wants their name removed for something that they don't support. And lastly, what I find very disturbing is, in terms of claiming that this is just about getting their right to vote, Neil went straight to the media to tell them that he had reached the signatures needed. Dave Andriotta's DNC article came out at 12:31. From what I'm told, Neil filed the petition at 3 p.m. So it would seem to me if the concern was really truly for Penfield, that he would have filed the petition and then he would have let the media know that he had made the grade. So for all these reasons, I'm really concerned about the validity of this petition. Many other residents are. I would like to see this concern taken seriously. Because this issue is causing angst from one end of town to the other. And no matter what happens to Shadow Pines, we all want to know that the outcome was made in honesty and with Penfield's best intentions as the impetus. So that's all I really wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mindy. Thank you. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Phil Monahan. I live at 219 Milford Crossing, just down the street. Mr. Supervisor, members of the town board, members in attendance, I spoke at a meeting 5 or 6, 7 months ago, very much in favor of the town purchasing the land and making it a forever wild park space. I am still for it. But I foolishly signed a petition believing in a democratic process of allowing the voters of the town to have a say in the purchase of the property. But I asked tonight to take my name, have my name taken off of the petition if it is going to delay in any way the purchase of the property. I feel that the town board worked for a year and had many opportunities for members of the town to come in and speak about the issue for or against purchasing the property. I see nothing but benefits that offer better values of the quality of life. And if they build anything there, I believe it should be senior housing where people can enjoy the land and the property, but we aren't going to increase the population so that we have to bear the burden of building a new school. So if there's a way I can take my name off the petition, I will just say yes, and I'll come to the town hall tomorrow to do it. I'm in favor of the purchase. I'm in favor of democracy. That's the only reason I signed the document.
So Phil, before you go, this is a good point because I've received a couple of emails that have a similar question. And so I'm going to ask our town attorney to comment how you get your name off the petitions that were turned in.
Unfortunately, the law is governed. Unfortunately,
you're consistent.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the law does not allow the town to delete any signatures.
The town.
Yes.
Did you hear that okay? Okay. And so there is a legal process that goes to judges if people want to object to the legality of the petition or anything about it. And there's a 5-day window that expires December 26 for people to bring such objections.
What's the name of the judge that I would present this objection to?
That would be up to you and your attorney and up to the court system to assign a judge.
So I have to go to an attorney and have my attorney prepare a document to say I would like my signature taken off that petition?
But let me just say this in context. There were a required amount of signatures that needed to be obtained, and I believe it was 685. We were presented with 1,133 signatures. So if there's one signature that isn't correct, you may be successful in getting your signature off, but it may not affect anything.
So they have an excess of 400 people that signed it, more than they need.
450 or so, yes.
Okay.
So I don't know how widespread any of these problems are, but that's the legal remedy. The town does not have the legal authority to adjudicate the legality of the petition. That's in the realm of the courts.
Okay. So the court can be the Grinch?
The court
can be the Grinch?
Depending on what your point of view is.
It is.
Right. Yes.
Thank you.
Either way. Yes, either way. Okay, let's see. So 1-2 or 2-1. So you are the next two, and then after that, over here, and then we'll get to any others and go from there.
Hello, my name is Megan Wagner, and I am a resident of Penfield at 8 Cambrai Drive, Fairport. Mailing address, that's a discussion for another meeting. This is my daughter, my oldest daughter, Keegan. She wanted to join me at the podium. She's a Harris Hill student. To two things. One was, my husband was also a person who signed the petition this past weekend under misinformation, came into the home very excited that he had done something for the community, and I had a minor heart attack. We were able to find out how to address that. Indeed, he was able to make contact finally last night and was told the same thing, that it was a done deal. So I just wanted for the record to state that as well. And I also wanted to echo Jeff Burns and everything he has said earlier this evening. Mindy, all of our colleagues and fellow residents here around this issue. I don't know enough more about Shadow Pines to be able to speak further, but I did want to state that. And it is an embarrassment to this community, I think, that we have found ourselves in this position, and really a major struggle for me. I've lived here now, again, as an adult for close to 9 years, and I'm really, in general, just struggling with the lack of communication from this board and the supervisor's office. Transparency. I would like to get back to Dr. McGrail's questions at the beginning of the public announcements, which was that I have submitted my letter of intent for the 2020 comprehensive plan, and just following up on that was, since July 26th, when I did submit, was a journey that I did not think I would ever have to be on within my own community. And I felt, again, embarrassment for my community, with my community. I continue to feel that. It's a wonder that all of these very active residents still have questions about all of these processes. And Ms. Metzler, you shared some things tonight that helped me understand more. And my question is, why are these things not addressed on the town's website, through more letters from the supervisor weekly? The fact that the town comprehensive plan page is still stating the same thing it has since the beginning of July, and plans change, things happen, that is understood as human beings. The fact that it's not communicated that changes are being made, that agendas are challenged, that schedules need to be readdressed, what is the concern? Or do we not have a webmaster that is able to do this in a timely manner? I have no idea. But that, for me, has been the number one issue, is that there's a lack of transparency and a lack of communication when changes are happening behind the scenes. And I think that's what filters out to residents, and there starts to become this distrust of each other that Mindy spoke to earlier, which I appreciate, as well as our elected officials. And that's concerning to me, not only in raising my family here, but just being a resident and adult and trying to participate, trying to be part of, and feeling like I don't have all the information, and it's so difficult to get all the information. That's what I have to say.
Okay.
So the question, I guess, would be, besides my statement, who is responsible for updating the town's website and communications?
We have a group that does that, but it is not that group. It's everyone that feeds into that from the town. So whether it's my office, the board, departments, or what have you. So if you want to lay blame, you can lay blame, to me, not to the people that are behind the scenes. They put up what they have to put up, and they do that in a timely fashion.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Happy holidays. Absolutely. Happy holidays to you. Mel?
Good evening. Mel Callan, 1410 Harris Road in Penfield. Just some clarification, Mr. Horowitz, about, and Tony, if you know these, that's fine too. You said 5 days to be able to challenge a petition, and we could observe or review the petition starting at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. But it would seem to make sense to me. Isn't it normally 5 business days? I mean, the town...
Statute says 5 days, not 5 business days.
Okay. Does the statute take into consideration that the town office is closed on Saturday? I mean, is there leeway? Is that a certain legal interpretation? If they say 5 days, do other towns, do other government entities choose to be more open with the residents and say 5 business days? I mean, it's kind of common sense.
It's unequivocal. I'm sorry.
Unequivocal. And that statute is state law?
Yes.
Okay. And the other question I have is, given the amount of questioning from residents about how they feel they've been, quote, duped in signing this petition, I'm wondering what would be the town's responsibility to question the validity? I hear you say it's not up to the town. The town can't really review and question every single signature, and I understand that, and I think that's reasonable. But if you're hearing so many residents, and it's not just a matter of one or two, I don't know if there would be enough in the area of 450, but if people were asked, I'm sure there would be many more people that feel they've been duped and didn't sign a petition with full understanding and regret having signed it. So hearing that, I'm just wondering, as town board members, what do you feel is or can be your responsibility to assist those who feel they have been duped and signed a petition without having full information?
So,
What we are trying to do through this meeting and through television is to communicate with the community that the legal process sets up the fact that there is a judicial process to go through to complain about those issues, and the judge would have to make a determination, is there something that in the process that he would invalidate these petitions. It would be a court case to be proven by some people who object.
So I'm hearing you say also that we would have to get a lawyer. I mean, when you were asked what judge, who would we go to? We'd have to find a lawyer, and the lawyer would...
It would be your option to get a lawyer. It is a legal proceeding. You could proceed pro se without a lawyer. That certainly would be up to the individual or the individuals.
If that was decided, where would we start? Do we go to the town justice, or do we...
I can give the town legal advice, but I can't give individuals legal advice. So
I'm
I
not
would
asking
suggest,
for legal advice, I'm just asking a process question. So the process question would be...
where do you go?
Other than, where do you go?
Where do you
I can
go?
answer this. I'm not the town attorney. I can answer it for you.
if you want to.
I did a little bit of legal research, very late night, very frantic legal research on petitions and validity of petitions, and did not find any cases and nor a cause of action for a municipality to bring an action. So I would concur with Mr. Horowitz as far as the ability of the town to challenge. There were individuals who brought action. The only other types of cases that I saw were where the petition bringer lost at the town level, meaning they didn't have enough signatures, something on its face, didn't have enough signatures, election districts weren't, the preamble didn't exist. Technical things were on its face. A clerk could say, this is not sufficient, but my understanding is that the municipality has to take the presumption that those signatures are valid signatures, and once it's accepted, that's one document that can't be scratched up, can't be altered, even if somebody comes forward and says, I want that off. So I didn't find any cases that dealt with fraud in the inducement or fraudulent presentation of a petition. Not that hasn't happened, I'm sure it has, but none that were brought to that level, because I was hoping I'd find something.
By the town.
Or an individual. I didn't find any cases that went up in Article 78 before Supreme Court. It would be brought in New York State Supreme Court.
So that, am I hearing you say that's where we would start? We would start with the New York State Supreme Court?
It would be an action in New York State Supreme Court.
Okay.
I would agree. The statute says that plainly.
Can you provide us with the citation in statute that says it's 5 days and there's no question about it?
It's Section 91 of the town law.
Okay.
New York town law.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mel. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas. Thank you. Yes, ma'am, and then, yes, that had another.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I will confess to the fact that this is my first town board meeting.
That's okay.
I am a resident of 15 Vixen Run, which is part of the Treebrook neighborhood development, which is directly across from Shadow Pines. And I actually come here on behalf of my entire neighborhood, because we have a very strong neighborhood with a very strong group of people that are vehemently opposed to the development of Shadow Pines.
And could you give us your name, please?
Susan Kavanaugh, sorry. I have a young child who is going to enter into the Penfield school system next fall. My biggest concern with all of this, first of all, is that I'm deeply disturbed because I happen to know Neil Madden personally. So to learn that he actually misled an entire group of people is very disturbing to me. What I also find disturbing is the fact that this town has had it brought to its attention that people were falsely misled and forced to sign the petition under false pretenses, to the extent that one of my very neighbors was at the Penfield Fitness Club talking to management, asking them to remove those people because they were being misled into signing that petition. That, to me, screams unethical behavior by an attorney. We have elected officials here on this board that are sitting here telling us that you can do nothing about that. And I really would like you to reconsider that, hearing that you've had people come to you with these complaints that they were falsely forced into signing this petition. An entire neighborhood across the street has become so upset about this that we are all wondering what it is that we can do to help this situation not occur with building out Shadow Pines. We all have small children in that neighborhood. We want to see that developed into a water park or some kind of forever wild property where the entire town can enjoy it. But this town cannot withstand any more development. We see houses going up nonstop. We have the development going up on 5 Mile Line Road and Atlantic Avenue. We cannot afford to have any more housing in this town. We also cannot afford to have another school built just to satisfy the population that's going to occur with new housing on that property. So I'm just here to say that I'm here to take action. I'm going to tell all the residents who are here right now, I'm standing here to take action against this. So whatever it is that I can do to help these people not get that property developed, I'm going to do. And I want you to hear that from me. My neighborhood is fully aware that I'm here speaking to you tonight about this, and they are all prepared to take action as well. So we are going to do what we can to push this in the direction that we all want to see it go. And I'm going to commit to you all that I'm going to work towards a better community to make sure that property does not get developed. But I do believe that this board has an obligation to address the concerns, especially of those people that have been forced to sign the petition, that were misled, that were lied to. When you have solid proof from the Penfield Fitness Club folks especially that they were asked to leave, I think that is enough to make you take action to help those people that were misled into signing that petition. When a lawyer lies to people, that to me is an ethical issue from the get-go. So I believe that's an obligation that you have to take action on. And I used to work for Neil Madden, so again, it concerns me a little bit that this situation even occurred. So that's all that I wanted to say. Thank you for letting me speak. I will try to be here in the future. 7 o'clock on Wednesday nights is a little difficult for me, so I apologize for coming in late, but it was important for me to be here for myself, for my family, and for my neighborhood, so thank you.
Susan, thank you. And certainly, I would just indicate that, the petitions are available, so anyone can review them. Obviously, this board has to follow the law. So Section 91 that Mr. Horowitz highlighted, we have to follow that process. We can make the petition available, and certainly, I think Councilwoman Metzler highlighted the process to move forward with that, and so that would be, certainly the next steps if an individual or group of individuals elected to pursue. Okay, hold on just a minute. I'm going to do one-time speakers first, and then we'll get to second time. I do have a resident on the line, so go ahead if technology works. Everything connects from here to there. Hello?
Is it, would it be me?
This is this Jim Olmsted?
It is indeed.
Okay, James, you're here, well, you're in the room just from home, so go ahead.
Okay, first of all, Jim Olmsted, 44 Flower Valley Circle. I am a member of the Conservation Board, also a member of the Moratorium Committee. And I hear the concerns of people who feel that they were misled or know of people who were misled in signing the petition. Not being a lawyer and not even playing one on TV, it seems to me that one approach that these folks might try, if they find that they'd like to have their name removed from the petition, I wouldn't think there'd be any harm in filing a statement to that effect with the town clerk before the end of this week. And at least that would give you a count as to how many people have this feeling. And then if folks intend to take legal action to make those wishes enforced, they'll at least know the number they're dealing with.
Okay. So certainly you've got your voice in the room on that. The clerk can collect those in the file and put that file with the petition that was received this afternoon.
That's the extent of my suggestion.
Okay. Thank you, Jim. Thank you for calling in.
Yeah, thank you, Tony.
All right. Carol?
Meadow, right near the Pines. And certainly not only speaking because of being near the Pines, but for the whole community and the impact. I, too, was down at the Racquet Club on Saturday. I took the second shift from after Lori. And I had talked with Bonnie at the Racquet Club before that, and I was the 20th person, she said, who talked to her that day. And I think in defense of Alan Hanford, he was approached by Neil Madden to allow them to come in with this petition. And I don't believe that Alan Hanford got their whole gist of it either, which is very sad, because I don't believe that he knew that this could bring a drop-dead decision for the Shadow Pines. I think he was being very patriotic and saying, yes, we deserve a vote. And we all like that idea, but someone threw a monkey wrench, a big monkey wrench into that whole thing. So I guess I'm just saying it in defense of Alan Hanford for allowing the Maddens to get in there. And I understand that they were really up close and personal, face-to-face, right out in the crowd, whereas we stood back and gave a little more attention to the position we were standing in there that day. And I did have one gentleman, and one of the gentlemen here was one who spoke to me down there at length, but another person said, we ought to get someone to jump on a plane to Atlanta and talk face-to-face and see if this date can't be manipulated. Very serious about it. How about, and I don't know how your negotiations go. I certainly have no plans to ever be on your board. But when Jeff asked if there had been any recent communication about this, how does that happen? Are you on the phone every few days, or just enlighten us a little bit about how you try to negotiate?
Sure,
this?
it's a combination of on the phone and through email, so things are documented. As you can imagine, you want to make sure that conversations. So I know our real estate attorney that's working on this after conversations will follow up with email. He makes sure that he copies in the town attorney so they're aware. He reaches out to Mr. Horowitz and I on some regular basis to go over some different items to make sure that he's moving in the direction of where the town is going. And so there are a number of things that have been resolved, and so I think the credit to both parties. And then there are a handful of things that are still being worked through, and one of which is the closing date, and that seems to be the biggest. I won't say it's the only item, but that seems to be certainly the biggest item that has been worked on and has gotten the most attention over the last couple of weeks. And so I guess before, again, I too don't play an attorney, and I'll just ask Mr. Horowitz if I missed anything or if I didn't cover everything.
And if he answers, I hope he puts the bike in the right position.
I'm sure he will. I'm sure he will.
I might get it after a few months here. Sorry about that.
I'm not sorry about it, because we need to be able to hear you.
There have been a few face-to-face meetings, as well as the phone, the mail, the email kinds of communications to try to bring this to a successful negotiated agreement. We're still trying.
Okay. The angst is high. Thank you.
Not as high as it is with me.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely,
Yeah. It's our town.
absolutely.
We deserve to have it, and I'm sorry that one citizen had such power.
Thank you, Carol. Happy holidays. I have on the phone Laura from Skyview Lane. Laura, are you with us?
I am.
Thank you.
This is Laura Downey, 84 Skyview Lane. I was a part of the moratorium committee, and I have a question for the board to whomever can answer. Due to the fact that these unethical practices have been raised and questioned, and due to the fact that we look to our board to be the leaders of our community, and also probably have the widest reach when it comes to being able to reach our community. Wondering if it would be possible for the board to post something tomorrow asking people who did sign the petition whether they felt they had signed the petition under proper pretenses, that they had full understanding of what the petition meant and what their signature meant, and if not, that they could follow the past callers' advice and have them call the clerk's office so that we could get a full record of those people. I do feel like there's very low attendance at the meeting tonight, and I do feel like there are people who will be posting notifications on social media later, which is wonderful, but I do still feel those audiences will be limited. So is it possible for the town of Penfield to post something tomorrow in every channel to raise this issue that we don't want to support any unethical petitions, that we do want to confirm if people feel they signed this with, full knowledge of what they were signing or not? Will the town commit to doing that?
We will get something up on the website, certainly within the parameters of the law. We will do whatever we can from a notification standpoint, again, recognizing we have to be consistent with Section 91 of the law. Laura?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I'm
Nope.
watching the TV as well as listening, so
Oh,
I
not a
wanted to
problem.
make sure I heard everything.
There is like a 5-second delay, so.
Yes. Okay, I wanted the town's response to that question. I'm just hoping that we can reach as many people as possible so that this issue can get resolution.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else, Laura?
That's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Have a happy holiday. Merry Christmas. Okay, anyone else that has not spoken? First-time speakers, yes, sir. And then Doug, once we've gone through all first time, we'll get to second time. Good evening. Welcome.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sean McCardle. I'm at 15 Hillside Road here in Penfield. I was just reviewing the information contained in Section 91, and what I was curious to know, when was or what determined the December 20th date today that the petitions would be due?
It was the November 20th bond resolution being passed on that day and 30 days expiring.
So
On December 20th.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so I'm just curious to know are we just now realizing that 5-day window that would only allow for Thursday and Friday of this week? Was that considered prior to tonight, or? Because I guess what I'm seeing is that, given what it says, and it clearly outlines, as Mr. Horowitz has stated, the 5 days after the filing of such petition, a written objection thereto to be filed with the town clerk. Given that 5 days now falls on this holiday weekend, are we just now realizing that is the case, and that we really are now only going to be permitted as residents of the town 2 days, Thursday and Friday? Am I understanding that correctly?
So essentially, as Mr. Horowitz stated, when we held the bond resolution vote, that's what started the timeline. In our interest to continue moving the process forward, we passed the resolution on that date rather than waiting for another week or two, so on and so forth. Because again, we were, faced with a closing date of January 31st. So we passed that resolution. So the petition received within the 30 days today, and then, the 5 days then follow that. And I think, as Mr. Horowitz indicated, and I think you've reviewed, is that that is 5 days, not 5 business days, but 5 days. And I think what I heard is that Christmas Day was kind of the only exception to that overall.
So just to clarify, we'll only have Thursday and Friday of this week to review the petition?
So, go ahead. Yep, no. What I was gonna say is that if folks would like come in and review that, they can do that. If they would like a copy, we will make that available via email.
Oh, okay.
And so that if you get to the clerk's office, we will have that. Again, we just got that in today. It came in hard copy. I think there are something like 102 or 107 pages that'll have to be scanned in and to be made available electronically.
So the written objection portion still will need to be filed by what day? Will that be received on a non-business day? Is that still possible as part of that 5 days?
The 5th day is going to be actually...
Christmas Day.
The 6th day.
Oh,
It's
okay.
going to be extended to Tuesday.
I see. Okay, sorry, I just wanted to make sure I
Yep,
understood that correctly.
absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Happy holidays.
Thank you. You
Thank
too.
you.
Thanks, Sean. Nope, not yet. Second-time speakers we'll get to. We're going to hit all first-time speakers first. Yes, sir. And then we'll hit second time, and then Doug is before you, Megan.
Ryan Stark, Piper's Meadow Trail, right across the street. So I am not actually really impacted in general by this. I don't tend to drive down Atlantic Avenue. I'm not going to be slammed by the ridiculous amount of traffic that's going to come in. That being said, I do have fairly strong feelings on it. I want to just start out and say thank you guys. I've been going back and reviewing the town board meetings and watching the videos and looking at what's transpired, and overall the impression I've gotten is that this has been one of the more civil discussions that I think I've seen here as well as in our neighboring communities. You guys have really just been very, very calm about everything and have answered everybody's questions and been very upfront when asked, so thank you. It is appreciated. I think there tends to be a desire really to just kind of let everything go in cruise control. You know, we vote for you guys when you come up for election, and then we just kind of walk away and nothing really ever happens. You know, we don't really pay any attention until something like this kind of forces us to come out. And I realize I am guilty of that as well. I've really been very content to just kind of let things go as they were, and I've been very happy with the way that things are going. Given the fact that we've got, 37,000 people in Penfield and 50 people in the room, I think the vast majority of the town would agree. That being said, I've looked at the timeline. I've looked at how things have progressed and what's come across. One of the things that's come up repeatedly in the meetings as well as online is there seems to be a lot of confusion. People don't seem to really understand exactly, we hear the same questions over and over again. Given this date, how much time did we have? How did this occur? And I realize it is a little bit late to it. It would be nice if we could get a fact sheet Maybe it would just eliminate some of the questions that constantly come at you guys if we had, similar to when I go on the website and I see, for zoning, I want to build a pool, what do I need? And it's very clearly laid out. Maybe we could eliminate some of the confusion that the people seem to have as we just laid it out. Here's the time that we started. Legally, we have 60 days. That puts us to here. And then maybe we won't have a lot of issues around it.
Did you see the timeline that we reviewed at our December 6th meeting by chance?
I listened.
Oh, okay.
I went back through and watched the
Got it.
videos. But a lot of it, I hear, in general, I think there's still a lot of confusion. People tend to focus really narrowly on the one or two questions that they have, and then later on they realize, oh, wait, what does that mean? And then they come back and they ask again, or, we're fighting over it on Facebook and trying to figure out exactly what it is. And
I think even up till today, Ryan, there was some confusion that a petition being submitted automatically guaranteed that a public vote would be held.
Right.
And again, due to the negotiations that we're in, if that timeline isn't agreed to be extended, then there will not be a vote.
Right.
And I think a lot of people thought just because they signed the petition, because the petition was turned in, meant that there was going to be an automatic vote. And again, that may or may not be the case, again, depending upon how that timeline
Right.
is discussed and agreed to as we move forward.
Yeah.
So, okay.
So yeah, I'm just thinking in terms of trying to get people as educated as possible, because I think that's one of the ways that we ended up in this situation is we have people who don't understand both sides completely. They don't understand the timelines. They don't understand the legal requirements that go into things. We don't control it. The state controls it.
Sure.
On a lot of things. So I think maybe educating people, we can hopefully avoid it in the future if we can't fix this one.
Okay.
Along those lines, I kind of believe in the, hope for the best, plan for the worst. So with that being said, I had written down a couple of ideas I just wanted to throw out. Obviously, I'm not expecting answers, but maybe just something to stick in your head. So assuming, like people have come up and said that everything goes badly, we can't get the deadline extended, we have to vote, and in general, we can't close the deal. What can we do to try and salvage as much as we can out of the situation? I know, a lot of the timeline comes around the idea of a bond. Has anybody approached, I don't even know if you could, approach the school district in terms of a short-term loan? I know that they tend to run in the $100 million range for annual budgets. They have incredible surpluses. This impacts them significantly. They're looking at an additional, 500 students that, so I know they definitely have, a stake in this. Maybe that's something that we could work with the school district and avoid the timeline maybe associated with going out for bonds.
So I think as Mr. Horowitz said, from a bonding standpoint, we were heading down the path prior to this petition. We were heading down the path of going through selling our bonds. Someone did mention that we do have a good credit rating. The town does have a good credit rating. And if the petition had not come in, we would have continued through, and on the timeline that I presented on the 6th, we would have been able to close on or around February 6th. So it's not a case that we won't be able to get the money or shouldn't be able to get the money. Now that the petition is in, that is a whole new ballgame.
Okay.
Again, that now forces a public referendum. And we will go down that path, again, provided we're able to extend the closing date.
Now, again, and I think this is where confusion comes
Sure.
in, so now I'll ask my question.
Sure, absolutely.
Is the referendum specifically because we were seeking a bond? So the referendum is tied to the bond. So if we all of a sudden said, we don't need a bond anymore, the referendum concept disappears, hence me suggesting maybe we could talk to the school district and see if that's something they would be interested in partnering with the town on to avoid seeking a bond and eliminate maybe that entire process.
But again, what would happen is I would fully expect, I don't want to speak for Dr. Putnam,
no.
But I think I have a good enough relationship with Dr. Putnam that if we borrowed, say, $3.6 million, he would expect that money to come back to him. And so then we would still be put in a position of having to go out to bond.
Okay.
You know, I'm sure if Dr. Putnam thought that could help, certainly, you know, and again, I don't want to speak for him, he certainly would be willing to have conversations, but again, it wouldn't be a gift, it would be something he'd be looking to have us refund to him.
So at the end of it, yeah, we'd still end up in the same situation.
We'd still be in the same situation.
Okay.
You know, from a bond standpoint.
Okay. Then really just my second comment or thought, I know, you know, I've lived in Penfield for 5 years, and in that time, I've seen massive development. You know, I've seen entire farm fields disappear literally in 6 months. It happens very, very quickly. I don't know if it's even an option. Can we look into perhaps some sort of town bylaw or ordinance specifically tied to our zoning requirements, where developments, for example, exceeding, say, 5 units, would have to go through additional scrutiny, specifically on the financial impact? Something along the lines of, sure, you want to build something with 6 units, that's over 5. We have to see what sort of financial impact that would have to our schools and our sewer and our buses. That being the case, then the developer would then be responsible for a portion of the extra costs that they were thrusting upon the town. Really just kind of a, you know, you want to come in and do something that's going to drastically impact the town, here's your financial obligation to be responsible for it. So I don't know if that's something that is an option, but maybe just an idea to percolate,
Take a look at it.
hopefully turn into something.
Certainly, yep. And I think part of our comprehensive plan over the years, there's been some adjustment to, you know, property from a lot size standpoint to increase or decrease lot sizes or number of lots that might be permitted, you know, in a particular area. And, you know, as we embark on the 2020 comprehensive plan, I'm sure that is going to be something that is going to get a lot of attention, including things like other golf courses in town, that what happens if they cease operation? What are you going to do with that? Are they going to be able to build according to zoning? Is the town going to go out and buy that? I mean, if the town goes out and buys all the land, you know, certainly who pays for that is the residents,
Right.
and there's that consideration. There's the issue of quarry that I think a number of people, including Mr. Froome, has brought up about how do we address that. You know, I'll sit here and say shame on us, 7 administrations, both political parties, 7 administrations, and the property is zoned today the same as it was zoned back in 1928. So there were 7 missed opportunities from different administrations, you know, to have some discussion about that. So those are some of the types of things that we look to address, you know, as part of this next comprehensive plan coming up.
Okay, great, thank you.
Great. Ryan, thanks for coming in. Appreciate it. Happy holidays and Merry Christmas to you.
You as well.
Thank you. First-time speakers. Any first-time speakers? Okay, second-time speakers, Doug and then Megan.
Thank you. As an attorney myself, I can answer some of the questions that have been raised here. There is a section of state law called the General Construction Law that specifies how you count days. And for an event that happens on a Wednesday, Thursday becomes day number 1, and you count each of the calendar days. And in this case, Christmas Day, the 26th, would be day number 5. Now, you count all the calendar days unless it ends on a holiday designated in this section of law, which would be Christmas, or if it's on a weekend. So it might have been strategic that instead of the petition being filed on Monday, where you could have had Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, day number 5 is Saturday, so it really becomes the next business day of the 26th. So it's rather daunting to only have really 3 business days to do this. So the next question is, yes, everybody who is aggrieved can file their own lawsuit, but the process of filing a lawsuit involves first preparing your documents, then filing them in the Monroe County Clerk office, and only then proceeding further. The filing fees alone for any suit close to $500. So it only makes sense that if there were to be legal action, that it all be consolidated into a single lawsuit and the filing cost shared by everybody involved with that. And presumably it'll be seeking an order to show cause to have resulting in an order that the town disregard the signatures of whoever objects, and that involves having an affidavit from each and every aggrieved individual to be part of this, the documents that are submitted to the court. And then, of course, once you'd have to have the judge sign that order to show cause, and only then serve it upon the town or anybody else who would be an interested party. So there's quite a process, difficult and expensive for each and every aggrieved individual to attempt this all by themselves. So, you know, it would be appropriate to meet to, if people want to have a single consolidated suit. The other issue that was mentioned is the referendum just because of bonding. Yes, the town is not authorized just to have a referendum, would we like to have a park? No, that kind of referendum could not be done, but what has to be done is if there's to be borrowing involved that would impact the property owners of the community, yes, that's when the referendum is called for. Now, if there are alternatives to the town bonding, you don't have to worry about a referendum. As I indicated, there are entities which can just go out and buy this land and hold it until the legal process of referendums or whatever they go through. You'd want this to be an owner who's interested in doing that. And there doesn't necessarily have to be a requirement by them that the town would go ahead, because of course the reason for an interim owner would be that the town cannot commit. So it's very possible, probable, that you could have an owner on an interim basis that would hold title while the referendum process gets worked out. And you can do a referendum whether or not you get this petition. Now, it's very possible also the petition will be overruled, and you may not need to abide by that filing. And so I commend you for going ahead regardless. And it's not the end of the story that the petition looks like it's okay, because 450 signatures to overturn is a daunting number. 450 affidavits to gather within 3 business days. So I would say that just because a petition might survive does not mean it's the end of the story. For one thing, the property owner may extend the deadline under which everything has to be wrapped up. And secondly, you may have an interim owner who would be interested in helping you. And ideally, there would be some kind of an option held by the town, or a right of first refusal, or something that would assure the interim owner that the property could be bought by the town. And of course, they have to have some compensation for this interim process. Sometimes that means they have to carve off a little bit that they can sell separately, or the price is a little higher, whatever, just so that they can cover their costs of being able to do this for lots of people. But nonetheless, that is a viable alternative. And even if it does cost a little higher, still, it would be well below the cost to the town if they were to have to go by the price that the developer, or that the owner would charge to a developer. So it's still going to be a bargain, still less than what appears to be the value of the property. So lots of alternatives, and legal action would have to have 450 affidavits. But on a crash basis, it's doable, but it should be consolidated for the economic efficiency. So I say this as an attorney, you can, this is information that answers your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Doug. Thank you for taking that time. Okay, Megan? Okay, very good. First time, second time, third time speakers? Second time speaker, Mr. Froome. Did you bring your checkbook, Jim?
I tried and failed 2 years ago on that one. With other people's money. But Jim Froome at 11 Denonville again. Just so I understand this is pushing a rock up a big rock up a hill. But if there were some sort of flaw in the petition or signatures, are you telling me that we can come here tomorrow morning, look at the petition, okay? Can I compare the signatures to the voting rolls, or is somebody going to do? See, I just assumed when the petition came in, the Board of Elections would look all at the signatures and look all at the voting rolls and match up the signatures and make sure they matched, and if not, they threw them out. That doesn't happen unless, so we have to go through each one and say bad, bad, bad?
Right, that's correct.
How do I do that?
So we have, I believe we have the,
Yes, we have the voter registration books. I have
Also,
it
we
in
will
my
be able to
office.
match?
Yeah.
Okay.
so we asked to have, we used to have those. Now, the other component of that, that the voting records might cover 80% of your signatures. So, and again, I'm not even going to try to do that. I'm going to ask Mr. Horowitz, who is allowed to sign? You don't have to be a registered voter. But I'm going to ask Mr. Horowitz to highlight what those into the microphone as to what that criteria is.
You have to be a citizen of the United States. You have to be a resident of the town 30 days prior to. And let me think of the other one. Excuse me, senior moment. I said 18, citizen, and a resident. And a resident, yes, for 30 days, yeah.
What was the last one?
A
Resident?
resident for at least 30 days prior to
18
signing.
years of age,
Yeah,
a
citizen.
resident for at least 30 days or more.
You're saying it
and a
doesn't
US
have-
and a U.S.
doesn't-
citizen.
Doesn't have to
Doesn't
be a,
have to
re-
match exactly what's on the,
doesn't have to be a registered voter
Does not have to
necessarily.
be a registered voter.
so it doesn't have to match anything. So we
Right.
have no way of checking that.
For that,
For that
again,
aspect, right.
from a 80-20 rule, 80% you could probably find within the voter registration books. The other 20%, there's a high likelihood that you won't be able to verify those
Right,
via the voting registration books.
right. I was thinking more in terms of matching it up to make sure everything was correct.
Sure.
So, okay, thanks.
Yep. First, second, third? Yes, sir.
Phil Monahan, 219 Milford Crossing. Based on the attorney's advice in regards to filing a petition, and based on the person that called in, recommending we bring to the town clerk a statement asking our names to be taken off the petition, would it be legal for the town clerk to receive those letters, notes, whatever they wish to be called on a legal basis, save them, and that 450, 300, 250, be what it may, take those papers and file a petition with the county clerk, and the filers assume the $500 debt on an equal basis?
I would, if you would, please, again, for the record, we're taping this, so if you would come up and actually speak into the mic. Everybody hears it here, and then everybody hears it at home. Thank you, Doug. Thank you.
To be part of the document considered by a judge, they should be affidavit formats, but this is the starting point, name, address, contact information, so that they could be contacted for an affidavit.
Thank you. Mr. Town Attorney, would that be legal for the town to have the clerk receive those statements,
Yes.
and then a resident could come in and make a copy or take it and file it with the county?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Not only Shadow Pines, but anything else? All right, there is a Jeff Burns. There is a second opportunity towards the end of the meeting. If anyone is interested in staying around, we've got another hour or so to, love to have as many of you join us as have an interest. So, Mr. Burns.
So just a quick question for our town attorney. Richard, so what would the criteria be for disqualifying a signature on there? I had understood, so it doesn't matter what's on the voter roll, or does it? If somebody...
If the person meets the residency requirement, the citizenship requirement, the age requirement, he or she does not have to be a registered voter.
Right, so how could we possibly check to see if somebody's been a resident for 30 days and tell somebody who's not a voter, tell if someone who's not a voter is over 18? I mean, it seems like we have an impossible task. There was another group that had 30 days to collect signatures, and we have in effect 3 days to challenge it, file a lawsuit, raise money to do this, and find information that would be impossible to find.
Plus, Jeffrey, you'd have to analyze whether you think filing a lawsuit is going to help the negotiations
Of course.
to get a closing date. Or do you think that's going to add to the time burden?
Oh, I agree.
To make
yeah.
some judgments?
Or die the
Certainly.
deal.
You know.
Right, yeah. I mean, it's definitely would be a question as to whether any of it's worthwhile, but it seems as though the way that this is set up, everything is stacked against us here.
It's certainly an example, especially as I did my research, of some flaws in New York law, that the time frame is set by statute. It's not a Penfield law. There's no review done by the municipality or the clerk who accepts it. We're not obligated to nor permitted to. There's no recourse if a municipality sees some misrepresentation or some fraud. The municipality has no legal recourse. All the municipality is permitted to do is accepting the petition, providing it, and I think Supervisor, we're able to provide more than is required in the law as far as review. We do not have recourse under the law.
Right. Well, I think I speak for a lot of people that were very, very disappointed that, it's
And
not...
we can't change the law within the next 30 days.
Yeah.
Next
And
5
it's not,
days.
5 days.
it's not you that made that law, but we're really disappointed that the law is not protecting
I think
us.
the problem,
Yeah.
Jeff, is that it's mirroring it's the election law. So you can see with election law issues why that time constraint would be very quick if something is happening very close to that election day timeframe.
Yeah.
I think it's a disservice to situations like our town is finding itself in, to have to follow that law that is really designed for election related.
Yeah, and per your point, I mean, like with election law, with an election petition, you can go and you can verify the names. With what we're given here, we can't verify very much with this. We certainly can't find who's over 18 or who's been a resident for over 30 days. It's virtually impossible for us, Okay.
Yeah. Sharon, your frustration.
I have a half a dozen or so letters that, or emails that have come in, and I'd be remiss if I didn't at least report out on these. Jamie Orlandi, Sweets Corners Road. I support the town's purchase of Shadow Pines. I urge the town board to thoroughly verify the validity of any names that may be on the petition from Neil Madden. He was not truthful to the people from whom he solicited signatures, misleading them into believing they were voting for a Shadow Pines purchase, when in fact a signature on the petition will prevent the purchase of Shadow Pines. In doing this, he becomes a disgrace to his profession, and the petition should be thrown out completely. The next one, Michael Schaefer, thank you to the town board for all you've done to continue to, for those impacted by and in favor of saving Shadow Pines. The next one is Judy Trabert, Woodside Drive. Purchase of Shadow Pines is very important to the long-term health of Penfield. I support the town council's approach of buying the property as quickly and expeditiously as possible. We do not need a referendum. Unfortunately, we do need a referendum. The citizens of Penfield elect our officials to make responsible decisions. Let them do what they were elected to do. The next one is from Tony, Harvest Walk. How is the board going to ensure that the first speaker, Mike, has his name removed already from the submitted petition, and the same for any others tonight who request that? What assurance do we have the town clerk removes these, and what the final number of signees is? Concerned citizen. And again, I think we've talked about that aspect of it. Nicole Feltz, Berrywood Circle, please buy Shadow Pines land. The schools are too crowded and we don't need more homes built. Louise LaConta at Graham Creek Heights, my vote is to save Shadow Pines. Lisa from Shadow Creek, I really appreciate the town board members' work, patience, and dedication to Shadow Pines purchase proposal as proposed. I hope the purchase goes through successfully and enriches the town for many, many years to come. Thanks all. Happy holidays to you and your families. This is from John on Maryview Drive. Has the County of Monroe been approached about partially funding or making Shadow Pines a park? Possibly a county park. The county was originally, the county did take a look at that piece of property and elected not to pursue that as a county park or a golf course. They were looking at it for a golf course as well. Another one from Jamie on Sweets Corners Road. What's the timeline that we need to ask Dolomite Old Castle now? This is what's the earliest closing date we could offer them. And so if we were to move forward, as we said earlier, 60 to 75 days to hold the vote. We go out for bond counsel and then set a closing date that would be approximately 3 to 4 month time frame for that. And then this is a Facebook post urging folks to come to tonight's meeting for your voice to be heard on saving Shadow Pines. Okay. Yes, sir. Come right forward if you will.
I just want everybody to know that I'm definitely in favor of buying the piece of property, but I have a question.
And for the record again, I'm sorry.
Just Ned Benson,
yep,
Harwood, 108 Harwood
yep.
Circle. You don't have a purchase agreement in place as of yet. Once we get that, you would have to then have a referendum in order to spend the money to buy it, correct?
Right. That is
so
correct.
Are we barking up a tree that is not really worth it? I mean, we're gonna have to have a vote anyways. So should we be more concentrated on working to get the people in the town to support the vote once you get the purchase offer?
Well, I
mean, is that, or am I misunderstanding what the petition was trying to, the petition was to get a vote,
that is correct.
but we're gonna have to have a vote anyways, correct?
Well, based on the petition, we have to have the vote.
But prior to that,
Prior to that, if a petition hadn't come in today, tomorrow, we would have started continuing the process with going out for bonds, getting the bonds issued, getting the money, and working towards a February 6th date that we had identified as being the earliest that we could close on the property.
okay, so you would have gone out to get bond money prior to a purchase agreement?
We had set that up to tee us up to go ahead and do that. We still have to have that purchase and sales agreement ultimately.
Right.
So if that took us another week or 2 or 3 weeks, again, that was, as we identified our timeline, we said that if everything fell into place, the earliest that we could do anything would be February 6th, and that was past the actual date that was identified as the closing, which was January 31st. So we continue, our real estate folks, Mr. Horowitz, myself, we continue to work on the town's behalf with the seller to look to, one, get the date extended, to get the closing date extended. Obviously, now it's even more critical to be able to do that because we received the petition today,
Okay, so the petition is forcing you to have,
the public vote.
period, like even, but that's after you get the agreement in place.
Even though if we were able to get the agreement in place tomorrow, we still, with the petition, have to go out for a public vote.
Which would have to be held 60 days after the date of the filing of the petition at the earliest by law.
And I think that's where some of the confusion is on this.
I'm not really following, I mean, if we have to have a vote to buy the property anyways, the petition says that they want to have a vote for us to buy the property, so isn't it the same thing?
But there's a January 31st deadline that Old Castle Dolomite has put on this town board. And so by filing the petition today, now going forward with a public vote, it goes far beyond that January 31st deadline that was given to us.
Right.
So as of January 31st or February 1st, if we can't close, or as Supervisor LaFountain said, we're trying to get an extension on that,
Right.
then the referendum that, you know, this petition was out there advocating for is really useless because it doesn't do any good. It exceeds the date that was mandated to us from Dolomite Oldcastle, where then they can go sell the land to anybody they choose after that fact. So I think that's where some of the confusion is in this whole referendum process, is they don't identify, and I talked about it a little bit 2 weeks ago in my public statements, the January 31st deadline. This
Right.
makes it look like that just by signing this, the town will then go have a public referendum and everybody will hold hands and do high fives and we'll be all good. It makes no reference to the mandated January 31st deadline that has been given to us by Dolomite Oldcastle, not to hold a referendum, but to close, to go beyond just holding a referendum, but to
Right.
close.
Right.
And so what the supervisor has been doing all along is trying to get that January 31st moved or extended so that we can have time to hold a referendum and satisfy the legal requirements that we have to satisfy per state law. This document that was handed out doesn't identify those facts, and that's, you know, where I think a lot of people were misinformed. You know, I've got my own opinions on it. I was very clear about it 2 weeks ago, and I think it was wrong of Mr. Madden and his team to not tell people all of the information to allow them to make an educated decision on whether they wanted to sign it or not.
Right.
So this, having a public referendum may not even be worth doing because somebody else may own the land by time we can do this public referendum.
Right, we're still under the 60 days for what they, if, let's say we can't turn the petition over or whatever, and you're forced to have a referendum, but it's going to be past the date that the Oldcastle is
Right.
saying.
And-
They could walk
Right.
away from the table.
Right.
Right,
And what the supervisor is doing is he is in constant negotiation to try to get Dolomite and Oldcastle, and, you know, I want to be very positive about their desire to be a good neighbor and to be a community partner and give us that extension so that we can have a public referendum. All of us on this dais want to have a public referendum. We need them to say, we're going to give you the time to do that. And that's what Tony and Dick and our legal team are trying to do, you know, every day to get them to extend the deadline. Does that help?
yeah, I guess it's a timeline thing is what it really boils down to, so 60, let's say next week, if the referendum thing wins, then 60 days from then, you're going to have to hold a referendum, whether we have a purchase agreement or not?
I kind of look at it more from a very simplistic perspective. If we can't get an extension on the deadline that was given to us from Dolomite Oldcastle, it doesn't matter what anybody does at that point. It's over with. So, 60 days, 90 days, whatever the legal requirements are, this document, being filed, just doesn't, it doesn't help. What really matters is trying to get Dolomite Oldcastle to give us that extension so we can do the appropriate thing and have the appropriate time to have a public referendum vote, and that's what we're trying to do at this point.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Absolutely. Thank you. Jim Froome?
Need my address again?
Nope.
Jim Froome,
Thank
11
you.
Denonville. I know when I talked before I was on the negative side, let's talk on the positive side, and this will be really quick. Being Christmas and New Year's coming up, let's pretend that the ghost of Christmas past goes to Atlanta and somebody sees the light, or you just have a great argument for them, and they decide to extend the deadline to something that's workable, okay? From the date of the petition today, law is 60 to 75 days, right? Not sooner than 60, not longer than 75 days.
Correct.
So that's our timetable. So my question to you and the board is let's, just because it's Christmas and New Year's and the days count, let's pretend that's 2 weeks, 3 weeks down the road by the time they agreed to do that. Do you have a problem getting the vote out in 60 days or 50 days if you have to? In other words, scheduling and getting the means. Are there any, the 60-day is a state law that you can't do it inside of that. Is there any other law that would affect that you have to advertise it for so long or anything? Is there any problem with doing it in 45 days if that's what it comes up to?
It's 60 days minimum from today.
I understand that.
We can't shorten that.
I understand that, but let's say it's 2 weeks or 3 weeks from now, before they say, hey, you can have a May 1st deadline.
In 2 or 3 weeks, we have a purchase contract?
Yes.
And they extend it?
Yes.
And then we have to meet the 60 and 75 days.
I thought you just said that 60 days was from today when the petition came in.
But we have to meet both.
Okay.
Purchase contract and meet the deadline of the 60 days from today, no farther than 75.
So 2 weeks from today, you reach agreement, okay? 70 minus 14 is what, 60 or 56, and 60 minus 14 is 36, 46. Can you do it in 46 days is my question, if you have to.
From the purchase contract?
No.
No,
Can you, from the
I think
date you
he's-
have, yeah, from the purchase contract.
That
Can you
really
get a
is
vote out in 46
That really
days?
is irrelevant from the statute. It's what we have to be concerned about is the 60 to 75. But yes, the answer is yes. If we can
I'm
fit-
asking you, can you physically do it? We know what the statute is, you've told us that. Physically, can the town get the machines out and get the vote done in a shorter period of time?
And we've been taking steps all along to get us to that process.
So,
Yes.
yes, I mean, it'll be a stretch. We'll, as Mr. Moore, Councilman Moore had indicated, we have taken the steps to plant all the right seeds in the different places so that, getting voting machines here. The big issue will be the education component to all of the residents about, the purpose and the benefit and all of that. And if you recall, back in 2002, when we did the open space at that time, we had a larger window to do the education. In this particular case, we may in fact have a smaller timeline to do that education. So we would be looking for any and all assistance from any and all residents to help us with that, and then to get the vote out.
And you and I had a meeting a couple weeks ago that had been scheduled for a long time, and the meeting originally, before all this, the stuff at the fan.
We can bleep that out, Jim.
Okay. The meeting I set up with you was to say, is there anything that I can do to help you in terms of video, brochures, or whatever? And the offer, I'll make it now since I didn't make it before after that. But there are a lot of people that are willing to help. We've looked at the brochure from before, and if it comes to that, just, give us a holler. And we'll help.
Absolutely. I think we'll be looking for essentially all hands on deck. I know Councilwoman Metzler, she's been doing some legwork and has identified, some information that would help as part of that education piece. And so it'll be an all hands on deck. We get to that point, it'll be all hands on deck, and we'll be looking for, obviously, everyone that has an interest in support of Shadow Pines to be there to support that and also get the vote out.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, sir.
Sean McCardle, 15 Hillside Road. Just a point of clarification, if the December 31st deadline comes to pass, is the only outcome at that point development on the property or a sale outside of the town?
January 31st?
I'm sorry, January 31st, my apology.
Yep, nope, that's fine.
So the question again, Sean, just to make sure we're on the same page?
Yeah, I just want to clarify a statement from Mr. Moore.
Sure.
Using the language that it's over after January 31st, I guess I just want to confirm that the town does not intend to take any other action after that 31st passing in January?
I won't speak for Mr. Moore. I think what he meant is that this chapter of the book will be closed, and then we'll have to look at what that next chapter is.
Great.
And as we've spoken before at these meetings, is that the board has and will continue to look at any and all other options. But again, right now, we're working, and at least myself and Mr. Horowitz, working each day to, in good faith with the seller, to try to get that date extended and to work with them on a closing date.
Thank you. I would just respectfully request that the town avoid using language like it's over, things of that nature, in these proceedings, just because I think it does maybe misconvey or miscommunicate what is actually possible after that date. So
Well, we have to be realistic, though, too, Sean, because
Sure.
if we've learned, and we've certainly learned through this process, that the existence of a moratorium, the possibility of an extension of a moratorium, the likelihood of a rezoning of the property has not deterred buyers from coming and offering up purchase offers. So along those lines, it could be over. If there are people who and developers who are lined up who are not deterred by that, they can have a purchase and sale agreement that has conditions in it that allow them to take that risk.
I think what you just said is it could be over is even an important just clarification between it actually being over. So just to make sure that the residents of the town understand that. And I know Mr. Moore wasn't intending that. I just wanted to make sure that that was clear, that I think that we shouldn't just give up as residents at that point. And I just wanted to make sure that that went on record. So thank you.
No, I think you're right, and I apologize. I shouldn't have said it that. I didn't. It was taken out of context how I wanted to say it. What I meant to say is it makes it extremely more difficult.
Absolutely.
And presents a lot more challenges.
Yeah, and I'm certainly, I just wanted to clarify I was not
Nope, thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
And I'm going to remain, continue to remain. I think Jim Froome had indicated that, the ghost of Christmas may shine a light on us. I'm going to continue to be optimistic right up until the time, somebody, says to me, definitely no. So we'll continue forward in good faith and do the best that we can.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Absolutely, Sean. I've got, hold on, Jeff. I've got Kyle from Sawmill Drive on the phone. Kyle?
Yeah, good evening. How you doing?
Go ahead, Kyle, you're on.
Yeah, so my quick question, Kyle Seal, 101 Sawmill Drive, Penfield, New York. My quick question to you is, if everything doesn't go as planned, what are your thoughts of the traffic pattern or traffic changes that could occur on 5 Mile Line Drive?
You mean Atlantic Avenue and Whalen Road?
No, in regards to Sawmill Drive, Colonial Drive, 5 Mile, and where the high school and the elementary school is.
So certainly the traffic that's there today would be increased if that property were developed into you pick the number, 100, 150, 200, 250 homes, that would have an impact not only on 5 Mile, Atlantic Avenue, Wayland Road. It would have impact to schools. So it would be Scribner School, Scribner Road School. It could be Cobble School, Bay Trail, the high school. There could be certainly a lot of impact overall, not only to roadways, but other infrastructure, storm, sanitary sewers, water, things like that.
But as me, yeah, I agree with you, but as me living on Sawmill, trying to exit left or right on 5 Mile, or taking Arrowhead to Colonial left or right, today it's impossible between the hours of 7 a.m. to about, I'd say, 9 o'clock a.m. to get out because of the schools. Is there any idea, if this doesn't go through, would you reconstruct the traffic pattern to accommodate the newer traffic?
So what I'll say, Kyle, is that as the planning board reviews any application, they work with transportation for. So in this case, 5 Mile Line Road is a county road, Sawmill a town road, and then Atlantic Avenue a state road. So you would have to have all entities as part of that conversation. And I can't sit here today to say definitely yes, roads, traffic patterns would be changed. What I can say is that that would be a big issue that the planning board and the town would have to look at if the property were developed for a couple hundred homes versus if the property were used for park, open space, recreation.
Absolutely. Now, has ever the planning board thought of adding a road from Baird to the high school, or to alleviate the traffic that is currently in place?
So I'm not sure I caught all that, Kyle. I apologize. It's a little bit garbled, but could you just repeat that?
Yeah. So my question is, has any of you thought of the current traffic and how to alleviate it by means of adding an access road to the high school from Baird Road to alleviate the left-hand turn into the high school from 5 Mile?
Those types of things have been discussed on again, off again for a number of years that I can speak to, maybe 15 or 20 years. That comes up every now and again, and to date, nothing has really formed about an alternate. As you can imagine, when discussed, people on Baird Road raised some concerns about the added traffic that they have there. So while it may solve a problem on 5 Mile Line Road, it does, you just push that bubble in other areas. So it has been discussed. I know the school district has had discussions with the town and vice versa. But again, at this time, there's nothing on the books to make any changes to what exists today.
So, Town Supervisor Tony, would you not agree that this might be a better discussion to have with the current instead of what we're dealing with today?
Absolutely. If you can have some of those conversations prior to a problem being either created or added to, definitely better to have it more upfront than after the fact.
Well, I want to thank you for your time, and I don't want to take any more up. I understand the Shadow Lake property, or Shadow Pines, excuse me, is a big issue with the town. Me being backed up to number 14, I definitely agree with the townspeople, but at the same point, I think the bigger focus should be on the infrastructure and the traffic, that no matter what happens with the development or the green space, we still have traffic issues.
Okay. Thank you, Kyle. Happy holidays.
All right, you too. Thank you.
Absolutely. I have two more notes that have come in. Mark from Woodline Drive, I support town's purchase of Shadow Pines. What's the probability of the seller extending the closing date a few months, high, low, 50/50? Thank you. Again, I said it earlier, I'm going to be cautiously optimistic that we can move that off the dime. And as soon as I know, you will know, because again, I think it's in the best interest of all parties, not only the town as a whole, but also the seller. I think it can be a win-win overall. The next one is from Jim, Creek Hill Lane. I truly resent the past comments of some of the board members and council that transparent and open communication would have somehow threatened the sale of Shadow Pines property. I really hope the wizard opens the curtain in 2018. That would be good for a lot of folks. Happy holidays, Jim. Thank you, Jim. Other comments? Oh, Jeff Burns. I looked over here. I said he went home. He got worn out. So.
Hi, Jeff Burns, 39 Scarborough Park. Just a quick question. The constraint in terms of the timing, following up on what Jim and Sean said, I'm just wondering, this petition requires a vote based on the resolution that was voted on November 20th. Could a new resolution be voted on that the petition would no longer apply to? And I don't mean that necessarily to short-circuit those who want to have a referendum, but just to pull that constraint from the timing issue, so that if, and this is a big if Oldcastle was willing to give sufficient time for a referendum, that we would not be constrained by the petition as well, so that there would be enough time for education. So the question then is, could the town do a new referendum, a new resolution for a bond issue for 3.6 plus $1 million, something like that?
You want to take a crack at that, Mr. Horowitz? And grab your microphone right there. I'm with you, Carol. I got him.
I think any determination made by the board can be rescinded for a good cause. There's a lot of variables that are, and assumptions that are in, your proposition for consideration, and a lot of it depends on Dolomite and Oldcastle.
Sure, of course.
So I think we're trying again to extend the time to do the closing, to allow the town to have a public vote.
Right.
So however that can be achieved.
Okay, so
everything is in good faith trying to be negotiated for an extension of time.
We may have a way of not, at least not being constrained by the petition's deadline. The petition gives 60 to 75 days for a referendum, but there may be a way around that. Again, not to bypass the referendum, but to do a different referendum, a different resolution, and then and still have the referendum thereafter. I mean, you could just announce. I mean, the board. Your preference was to have a referendum too. So I mean, like that. So we could go that route if we were given sufficient time from Oldcastle.
It all comes down to that.
Okay. Good. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Mel.
Mel Callan, 1410 Harris Road, Penfield. Just a process question. I heard you say, we'll know when you know, and I appreciate that. Just so you don't have 400 people calling your office every day, what process are you going to use for communicating? Not only particularly so we have the information, but so we also have time to strategize and talk to folks about some options. So how do you want to inform us?
What I'll say to you is there's no one easy way. It's a multiple things. So we could put something on the website. We could put something on the project page of the website. Putting something on the website on the front page gets more views than someone having to go to the project page. We might do a press release. my weekly column. I mean, there are a number of things that, depending upon when it hits, if we have a board meeting, I mean, we'd be looking to hit as many avenues as we could.
I hear you talking about the final answer that you might get from Old Castle. What I'm thinking, like, people are going to be wondering day by day what's going on. So, like, every couple of days, could you put something on the website, no news today, or negotiations going on, or something like that?
I could certainly do that so that it's on the front page, to say that as of today, December 20th at noon, there is nothing new to report on Shadow Pines.
Okay. And then I'm sure you'll still have some key people that want to ask you maybe more specific questions again, so that we have an opportunity to strategize.
A day hasn't gone by in the last 2 months where I haven't had a whole bunch of phone calls, people stopping in, and emails about that topic.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Other questions? All right. We're going to do something different here. We're going to take a short break, not a break. We're going to just move into the rest of the agenda. You're welcome to stay. If you have to leave, we completely understand. And then as we get through that, again, as I mentioned, there is a second opportunity to speak to the board or address the board on any matter. So with that, I will move on to additions and deletions to the agenda. Does the board have any additions or deletions to the agenda? Seeing none, we have next the approval of the minutes. We have the November 20th, 2017 minutes before us, and would entertain a motion of approval for those minutes.
I move that the minutes of November 20th be approved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion on those minutes? Seeing none, then I would ask for a roll call vote, please.
Cole.
Aye.
LaFountain.
Aye.
Metzler.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
4 ayes.
Thank you. Petitions. This is the point that I made reference to earlier in the agenda. Has the town board, town clerk, or town attorney received any petitions since the last meeting?
The town clerk.
And I'm going to just interrupt you for a minute. Mr. Horowitz? There are some pearls of wisdom being shared, I'm sure. Could you share those out in the hall? Thank you very much. Mr. Burns, that would be great as well. Thank you very much. That's much appreciated. And with that, I will yield back to our town clerk, and we'll ask petitions received, please.
And as everybody is well aware of, I did receive a petition regarding the call for a referendum vote on Shadow Pines.
Great. Thank you very much. Seeing none others, we'll move on to resolution by function. We'll start with law and finance, if we could, please.
Okay, appointment of Penfield Town Clerk, Amy M. Steckloff, registered municipal clerk and certified municipal clerk as marriage officer.
Moved.
Second.
Whereas pursuant to Article 3, Section 11C of the New York State Domestic Relations Law, a public official may be appointed as marriage officer by the governing body of a village, town, or city. Whereas Penfield Town Clerk Amy M. Steckloff has had requests to perform marriage ceremonies from residents and others who do not want a member of clergy or the courts for marriage. Now, therefore, be it resolved, pursuant to the provisions of Section 11-C of the Domestic Relation Law, Amy M. Steckloff, Town Clerk, is hereby appointed a marriage officer for the town of Penfield. Be it further resolved that this appointment shall take effect on January 1st, 2018 through December 31st, 2022. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion. Seeing no further discussion, roll call vote, please.
Cole.
Aye.
LaFountain.
Aye.
Metzler.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
4 ayes. Authorization for the release of a stormwater management facility access and inspection easement at 1429 Shoecraft Road.
Moved.
Second.
Whereas Carolyn Lesio and Stephanie Ketterall, the owners of property at 1429 Shoecraft Road in Penfield, have requested that the town of Penfield release a stormwater management facility access and inspection easement on said property. Now therefore be it resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Penfield hereby authorizes a supervisor to sign a release of easement with the owners of the property located at 1429 Shoecraft Road. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion. See no discussion, roll call vote, please.
Cole. Aye. LaFountain.
Aye.
Metzler. Aye. Moore.
Aye.
4 ayes. Authorization for the town supervisor to sign a professional service contract and Stanton Landscaping Corporation for drainage improvement.
Move.
Second.
Whereas the Town of Penfield sought quotes for landscaping services to perform work on Bronson Drive in the Town of Penfield. Whereas quotes were requested and Stanton Landscaping Corporation was low bidder. Now therefore be it resolved that Stanton Landscaping Corporation at 1800 Tiber Road in Webster is awarded a contract to provide professional services for drainage improvements on Bronson Drive in the Town of Penfield. Be it further resolved that the supervisor is authorized to sign a contract with Stanton Landscaping Corporation not to exceed $13,400. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion. See no discussion, roll call vote, please.
Cole. Aye. LaFountain.
Aye.
Metzler. Aye. Moore.
Aye.
4 ayes. Authorization for town supervisor to sign a professional service contract amendment with DDS companies for sidewalks on Empire Boulevard.
Move.
Second.
Whereas the Town of Penfield is supportive of the installation of sidewalks within the town. Whereas the Town of Penfield obtained a community development block grant funding in 2015 to install sidewalks along Empire Boulevard. Whereas the Town of Penfield subsequently authorized DDS companies to prepare construction documents for the installation of the above sidewalk improvements. Whereas proposals dated January 23, 2015 and March 6, 2015 by DDS companies provided proposals for professional engineering services for this project to include survey and mapping for a total contract of $11,000. Now therefore be it resolved that based on the submitted proposal prepared by DDS companies on November 17th of 2017, the town board hereby authorizes DDS companies to provide the additional design for the Empire Boulevard sidewalk project in amount not to exceed $4,700. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion. See no discussion, roll call vote, please.
Cole. Aye. LaFountain.
Aye.
Metzler. Aye. Moore.
Aye.
4 ayes. Setting a public hearing to consider a conditional use permit to allow a sit-down restaurant with outdoor dining and entertainment at 2126 5 Mile Line Road.
Moved.
Second.
Whereas an application has been received by the Penfield Town Board for the issuance of a conditional use permit pursuant to Chapter 250-5.10-D2 of the Code to allow a sit-down restaurant with outdoor dining and outdoor entertainment at 2126 5 Mile Line Road in the Four Corners zoning district. Be it resolved that the Town of Penfield acts suited to be lead agency within the meaning of the seeker process with the State of New York. Be it resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Penfield shall hold a public hearing at the Penfield Town Hall on January 17, 2018 at 7 p.m. on said date to consider said application and hear all persons interested in this outdoor dining and restaurant. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion.
Just that this is the restaurant formerly known as Cha-Cha's.
Great, thank you. All right, see no formal or no further discussion, I'd ask for a roll call vote, please.
Cole.
Aye.
LaFountain.
Aye.
Metzler.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
4 ayes. Authorization for the town supervisor to sign 2 professional service contracts with CNS companies to conduct a Phase 2 environmental assessment for 2701 Atlantic Avenue, 1950 and 1960 Clark Road, and 745 Wayland Road, Shadow Pines.
Moved.
Second.
Whereas the town board identified the project as a type 1 action under seeker, and the town board had prepared a full environmental assessment form for the project, including preparation of an EAF Parts 1, 2, and 3. Whereas the town board by resolution 17T-183 awarded a contract with CNS companies at 499 Colonel Eileen Collins Boulevard in Syracuse to provide professional services for both the seeker assistance and Phase 1 environmental assessment of the former Shadow Pines Golf Course in the town of Penfield. Now therefore be it resolved that based on the Phase 1 environmental assessment, further investigation and assessment of the existing facilities is required. Thank you. I'm sorry. Be it further resolved that the supervisor is authorized to sign a contract or sign 2 contracts with CNS companies for the professional services not to exceed a total amount of $17,925. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion. Seeing none, roll call, please.
Cole. Aye. LaFountain.
Aye.
Metzler. Aye. Moore.
Aye.
4 ayes. Advertising for bids for the replacement of a portion of the roof at the community center.
Moved.
Second.
Be it resolved that the Director of Public Works is authorized to advertise in the manner prescribed by law for sealed proposals to furnish the Town of Penfield Department of Public Works with the following: Phase 1 of the replacement of the roof at the Penfield Community Center. Now therefore be it further resolved that the replacement of a portion of the roof at the community center covered by such proposals shall be in accordance with specifications prepared by the Director of Public Works. Sealed proposals are to be received in the office of the Town Clerk until January 12, 2018 at 11 a.m. and there and then to be opened and read publicly by the Town Clerk.
Thank you. Discussion. Seeing no discussion, roll call vote, please.
Cole. Aye. LaFountain.
Aye.
Metzler.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
4 ayes. Advertising for bids for printing program brochure.
So moved.
Second.
The Director of Recreation is hereby authorized to advertise in the manner prescribed by law for sealed proposals to furnish the town of Penfield the following: printing of the Recreation Department seasonal program brochure. Be it resolved that the service is covered by such sealed proposals in accordance with the specifications prepared by the Director of Recreation. Sealed proposals are to be submitted to the office of the town clerk until 11 a.m. January 10th, 2018, and then and there be opened and read publicly.
Thank you. Discussion. Seeing no discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Cole.
Aye.
LaFountain.
Aye.
Metzler.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
4 ayes. Authorization for supervisor to sign recreation contracts.
So moved.
Second.
This resolution authorizes the town supervisor to sign 21 recreation contracts, and they're all dealing with the different programs coming up in the town. You should have all received a recreation brochure in the mail last week.
Okay, thank you. Discussion. Seeing no discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Cole.
Aye.
LaFountain.
Aye.
Metzler.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
4 ayes.
This brings us to old business. Any old business to come before the board this evening? Seeing none, is there any new business to come before the board this evening? Again, seeing none, brings us to our second public participation. I've received a few more notes and emails here. Let me read those into the record. This is from John on State Road. Hi, John from State Road, 30-year resident of the town. My question is, why is the town not proceeding with a referendum for a purchase of the property, no matter who owns the property, in 60 days from today? Town residents should have a say for yes or no to the funding of the property, no matter who owns the property in the future. Why not be proactive in having this in hand versus waiting? Happy holidays. And again, John, there is no purchase agreement that we have with the current owner, and I'm not sure in your particular case, if we were to hold a referendum to buy your property, that you would necessarily be supportive of that. So we really have to make sure that we're following through and doing the process and making sure we have an accepted purchase agreement before with both parties. This is Sharon from Burroughs Hill. Superintendent Tony, board members, community members, thank you for the support and advocating purchase and support of Shadow Pines Forever Green. We love Shadow Pines. Neil and Dorothy Madden are extremely deceptive and blatantly lied to community members and illegally lured people into signing a false petition. The Maddens should be held accountable for this. This is unacceptable. This is unlawful. This is disgusting. I'd like my name removed from the petition. We're in full support of saving the pines and keeping the land green forever. Thank you for keeping moving forward with the purchase of Shadow Pines. Next one is from Michelle on Atlantic Avenue. I am strongly opposed to the development of Shadow Pines. I feel that the town of Penfield will greatly benefit from purchasing the property, allowing space for the Penfield families to enjoy, keep traffic volumes from increasing, which would cost more taxpayer money to have to pay for widening of roads, sewer systems, and all the improvements that would be needed. Adding 250-plus homes would increase school population and keep Penfield from staying beautiful, small community that it is. This is from Jim and Lynn, Sweets Corners Road. We do want the town to purchase. We do want the town to purchase Shadow Pines so that Ryan will not build 255 homes, housing development in this area. This is from Victoria, Piccadilly Square. I feel very strong about the town should purchase Shadow Pines property from Oldcastle. Keeping this beautifully green would enhance the lives of Penfield residents much more than another subdivision. Once the land is gone, there is no getting it back. And lastly, John, and I think that was a second one. Let me just verify that. Yes, this was John from State Road, 30-year resident. Why not proceed with a referendum? Okay. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board on any matter? Seeing none and seeing no further business to come before the board, the December 20th, 2017 legislative session of the town board stands adjourned. I would like to wish all of our Penfield families Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. The next scheduled legislative meeting of this board will be held January 3rd, 2018. That will be our organizational meeting, and look forward to any and all willing to participate. Thank you again for everyone that did participate tonight. Thank you to Penfield TV. Meeting stands adjourned, 10:05 p.m.